We are now recording, is that right? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled March 8th City Commission meeting to order. I would like to begin with approval of the agenda. I have no changes or amendments to the agenda as it was published. Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any questions or comments on the agenda as we publish in the dais? Hearing none. Now, so we'll put our phone number up. We'll go to public comments. Ladies and gentlemen, we are still conducting hybrid meetings, although we're starting to get more and more people here in the chamber. We have a motion duly seconded on the floor to approve the agenda with no changes or additions or amendments, just as it was published. If you'd like to call in, you think something should be on the agenda, is on the agenda by mistake, now is the appropriate time to bring that to our attention. You can accomplish that by dialing the phone number on your screen or get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, with the bottom of your feet, you'll see a little hand symbol. Simply click that hand symbol unless you'd like to address the commission, make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment, and then we'll go to virtual comment. Anyone live and like to address the commission? Seeing none, do we have any virtual hands raised? None, we'll come back to order. And we don't need to do a roll call vote because we have everybody here. All in favor, somebody by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to invite Pastor Jack in, First Baptist Church of Newberry, up to the dais. If you would, on the Zoom meeting is perfectly acceptable. We just want to bow your head. If you're live in the chamber, please stand with us as we rise to pray. And please remain standing. Always Pastor Jack. Welcome, sir. Let's pray together.
Father, we thank you tonight for allowing us to come together to pray. Lord, we thank you for the city of Newberry. Thank you for allowing us to be blessed to be here, Lord. I thank you for allowing us to be in the state of Florida. Lord, we thank you for our governor. We pray your blessings over him, continue to use him. And God, I thank you for our city, for our mayor, Lord, for city council servants, Lord, here. I just want to lift them up and ask you to give them wisdom and guidance tonight. Lord, we do want to pray for Commissioner Coleman tonight, Lord. You lay your hand upon him and praise him up, be merciful to him and his family. And Lord, provide for all his needs tonight and the days ahead. Lord, I pray that you do a miracle in his life. And Lord, we just pray for him tonight. That's you bless him in a special way tonight. Bless this meeting tonight, Lord. We thank you for our city that you allow us to live in. Help us to be good citizens, to pray for one another and encourage one another. And I just pray your hand be upon this meeting tonight. And we thank you, Lord, for your great love for us. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Jack. All right, I'll take us to presentation. We have some good news, which we always enjoy. We received a certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. Dallas, do you have anything you want to share with us about that? I believe this is the second year, third year, and then I have an award to come down and present you.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. As I mentioned, this is our second year receiving this award. This is an award that is given to us by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for our comprehensive annual financial statements, also known as our CAFR. This is for it is.
Yes, people look like they can't quite hear you. Speak up just a little bit.
All right. Let me make sure it's the right microphone.
All right, everyone to hear.
Can everybody hear me?
Okay.
Okay. Starting over, like the mayor said, this is our second consecutive award. This is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, which was awarded to us by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for our comprehensive annual financial report ending last year. This is our CAFR, the highest form of recognition that a government can receive in accounting and financial reporting, and its attainment represents significant accomplishment by the city. This is our second time receiving it. Less than 6% of government earn this award, and only 1% of government as in Newberry do win this award. The award is judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which include demonstrating a constructive spirit of disclosure and clearly communicating our financial story to our public. In your backup material is a short 72-page checklist of all the things you have to hit in your financial statements to win this award, as well as some more information about the award.
Thank you, Dallas. If you'll join me at the podium. Thank you, sir.
Good job, Dad.
We are 1%ers.
And truly, the public's money and trust with their finances is a sacred charge. And we appreciate all that the commission and the staff have done so that we can point to that award when our residents ask us that we have achieved the highest rating that there is. So thank you, Dallas, for making sure that you're able to have that award. All right, and Dallas, I think you're still a government finance professional of the week.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. I feel a little bit strange presenting this. Last year at this exact same meeting, we also received this award and did government professional finance professional of the week. And then we immediately went into COVID and we didn't meet again. So I'm hoping that this year is a little bit better than last year's.
I'll read the proclamation with a little more emphasis.
Clearly, we didn't do a good job on government finance professionals week last year. Before the proclamation, I do want to give a brief overview of the finance department and our accomplishments over last year. So, Mr. Mayor, in your finance administration department, you have 8.5 full-time equivalent positions, staffed with 9 people. It's roughly broken up into 4 in your finance administration area, 3.5 in your customer service, and 1 in your HR departments. In your finance and accounting areas, obviously we provide financial guidance and advice to the commission manager and department heads, prepare your reports, and ensure guidance to generally accepted accounting principles and the generally government accounting standards board, and prepare your budget. In finance and accounting last year, we made over $13.2 million in payments. We processed 8,200 invoices and we wrote 3,800 checks. We made 26 payrolls for 146,000 hours of work. I like to think that the 146,000 hours of work show you how much effort and time it takes to run a city. Those 146,000 hours of work resulted in $3.3 million in payroll earnings and $1.2 million in benefits and taxes paid. We manage your debt and we issue your purchase orders. Last year, we issued 931 purchase orders and did 6 competitive bids. In our customer service and billing area, we process the customer utility bill and handle customer issues and trying resolution to our customers. Last year, we handled over 13,000 phone calls. That does not include the phone calls that our third-party call center answers. We are one of the only utilities in our area, maybe the only utility of our size, 24-hour, 7-day-a-week call center. If you want to open or close a utility account or pay your utility bill at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, we will be more than happy to do that for you. Last year, we printed and distributed and collected over 31,000 utility bills. We also opened 427 new utility accounts. In your administrative services area, we maintain your IT infrastructure across 6 servers and 77 workstations, as well as the network and our website. In terms of your public information and relations, we're responsible for your social media, for preparing information for your public, for community events and festivals, maintaining our reverse 911 system, which we use most recently for our vaccination events. And then in administration, we administer rentals, review and administer contracts, administer grants, assist in review and help in union negotiations. And our most favorite task is special events, most notably the tree lighting ceremony we had this year, which was one of the only events in the state that had live. In your HR department this year, you provide all the fun resources of HR, including maintaining health benefits and risk packages for the city, retirement plans, negotiating commercial insurance plans, hiring new employees. We hired 19 new employees last year, as well as quarterly and annual reporting. Some of our accomplishments over the last year: we administered the CDG housing grant. The picture on this slide is one of the new homeowners, happy to receive the keys to her new house. We also administered the SHIP grant, as well as the State Road 26 lift station grant. Obviously, the biggest thing we did last year was COVID. The Finance Administration Department was involved in a lot of issues related to COVID, most notably assisting our customers to make sure their utilities could continue on without disconnections. So we suspended utility disconnections and penalties for a few months. We had a negative power cost adjustment to lower customers' bills. We waived fees, and we also allowed online payments without fees. We also provided our customers with unemployment assistance programs. We helped them apply for the CARES Act through the county, as well as other resources that were available. We worked with the mayor and established the community coronavirus resource relief fund, which helped pay several customer accounts and provide food to our community. We had a live chat system customers to our website. We very quickly moved 40+ employees to a work from home virtual environment. We implemented Zoom and other collaboration resources citywide. We started an ACH payment process, transitioned vendors to ACH payments and check payments. And we transitioned city and PNC meetings to virtual and now hybrid meetings. We had a couple of IT implementations last year. The biggest one for the city commission was the agenda management software. We also negotiated a lower increase in our citywide group health insurance. We had less than a 2% increase in our health insurance last year. And then we updated a variety of policy programs in terms of personnel. The biggest one was the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, which was just a brief 800-page federal law that we had to interpret and implement within a week. And that completes my overview of the finance department's accomplishments last year, Mr. Mayor.
Well done. Now, before I read this proclamation, can I get a little feedback about my mic? Jamie, is that sounding any better to you, or am I still distorted? Still distorted. What about you, Ms. Wendy? Is it distorted through your computer? Wendy?
Sounds good, sounds good.
It is distorted through your computer?
Not to mine now, no.
What about now? That help any?
That sounds good.
Not that help a little bit?
It's where Sierra said no.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we'll keep working on it and see if we can get it better, but once again, great job to all involved. And Dallas, I just have to point out that opening picture, maybe a little out of date. Your hair seems a little different now. So, whereas the Florida Government Finance Officers Association, Professional Association, founded in 1937, serves more than 3,300 professionals from state, county, and city government, school districts, colleges, and universities, special districts, and private firms. And whereas the FGFOA is dedicated to professional resource providing opportunities, leadership, and information. Whereas government finance by the FGFOA, all of this federal governmental organization, is a year-long series of activities aimed at recognizing government finance professionals and providing services that provide to our state and our community. Whereas during this week, government finance professionals throughout the state of Florida will be acknowledged for their hard work, dedication, and leadership. Now, therefore, I will acknowledge the mayor to do by March 15 to 19. 2021 is Government Finance Professionals Week in the city of Newberry. To extend our appreciation to all government finance professionals throughout the state and here in the city of Newberry for their hard work, dedication, and leadership. Duly proclaimed this 8th day of March in the year 2021 and attested to by the clerk of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, Ms. Judy S. Rice. Let it be here. Thank you, Dallas.
Thank you.
Again. All right, up next tonight is the Jimmy Durbin Park Master Plan. And we've all been excitedly waiting to see this park finished. Now here we've got some beach volleyball teams that are playing down there. So take it away, Travis. Tell us about what's going on.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I am here to present Jimmy Durbin Park, and we do have a lot going on. If you've been by there lately, production has ramped up. We have volleyball courts in. We also have the baseball field getting close to being wrapped up. You'll see that we've got a backstop now, poles, and all the other stuff.
You're in control. You just moved it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Recommended action is And the purpose, we talked kind of about what the purpose of the master plan was last time for Easton, is to give us the plan so that we know as we progress and we start to add things and make sure that we kind of plan this thing in advance, so we don't have a part and then say we want to add this and we got nowhere to put it. You guys all have a handout for the plan, but because I know this was small, but some of the things that we're doing, we're renovating the existing baseball and softball fields. Obviously, one is happening now. We developed two new volleyball courts, which I've talked to a lot of folks across the industry. Everybody is envious of those courts. They're beautiful, and we're getting a lot of play on them. We're going to start a adult league over the summer, and then we're also going to have some teams. We have U-Bolts out there practicing because they didn't have a home court. So I anticipate getting a lot of views. We're adding court lighting in the next probably month or so. Our plan is to have interior roads and parking improvements along with that comes utility drainage infrastructure, the parking area and the park lighting, sidewalks, travel paths. We're going to have a new stormwater retention area and we're going to do some upgrades to the playground. So mostly what you see configured there on the northern side is where most of the development is occurring. And that's just a view just a little closer. So those that we haven't been by. If you go by, you see the net, they're at an angle. We do that on purpose just so that water runs from one end to the other. I get a lot of calls that say, hey, a bunch of people out there must do that, it's on purpose. And then you see fencing, we got the backstop going in, the poles, the net. So it's starting to take shape.
Commissioner, any questions?
We're gonna bring in the pros.
Our pros, our local pros. It's gonna be nice.
It does, it looks very nice. What's our estimated completion time?
I anticipate that this week we're having some soil amendment dropped off. We'll have it spread out and then we'll have field plug. I hope that by the end of spring.
Other questions?
How are you handling people that want to use them just from the general public? Is there any register, is it first come, first serve?
It's a first come, first serve. It's probably going to end up playing out much like our baseball, softball fields that we have now. When we start running leagues, we'll have practice time, schedules, and stuff like that. And then we'll get that information out, and then people will start noticing that. And then if they have questions, they usually call. But it'll be a first come, first serve.
It'd be nice in the future if we could start thinking about maybe running that sidewalk from there to the high school.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. I appreciate you being with us tonight. All right, ladies and gentlemen, your commission likes to hear from you. They want to hear your voice, your thoughts, so they set aside a moment at the beginning of every meeting for public announcements. These are the less controversial 2-minute announcement type comments. We set aside a longer period of time at the end of the meeting, so we have 5 minutes to talk about anything you'd like. If you'd like to address the mission on any item, that might be on the agenda. Now's a great time to do it. All you need to do is dial phone number on your screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, with the bottom of the screen, click the hand symbol. That lets anybody address the mission. Make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to start with live comment and then we'll do the virtual comment. But before we go to live comment, I'm going to ask our clerk to go ahead and make an announcement. As you know, this is our first day of qualifying for the city elections. So Ms. Judy, you want to update the commission on who's qualified so far, and you and I can talk a little bit about the COVID things that we're doing, make sure everybody's safe, taking appointments and all that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Ms. Judy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to announce that the qualifying period for our 2021 municipal election started today at noon. And the following candidates qualified for today. And the first was Jordan Marlowe for the office of mayor. Joy Glanzer for Group 4, and Tony Mazon for Group 5. Our municipal election will be held on Tuesday, April 13th at the municipal building. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Please contact the city clerk's office at 352-472-2446 or email bayrice@newberryfl.gov to make an appointment to qualify. The last appointment will be Thursday, March the 11th at 11:30 a.m. Qualifying will end that Thursday at on our website. You will find the election page under our resources tab in the upper right-hand corner. You may request vote by mail ballots online and by phone until Saturday, April the 3rd. If you have any questions, again, please contact the city clerk's office. We'd be happy to assist in any way.
Just in case you didn't hear it, due to COVID, we need to sanitize everything and not have a lot of folks in a small office. Everything is by appointment. That's how the election was proclaimed this year. So I know that we have some folks in town that like to kind of wait till the last minute and do kind of a shock and awe kind of a moment, but this is a bad year to try to do that. So if you're thinking about running, please call Miss Judy, please call the city clerk tomorrow, set up an appointment. It's going to take you 2-3 hours to work through the paperwork. It's not just city hall, there's also have to do other things as well. And we need to stick to those appointments. So please call, make those appointments, try to show up on time. If you're running late, let us know. We're doing a lot of work to make sure that you come in healthy and you leave healthy. And we don't want our whole clerk department sitting around waiting for a long time for folks who are running late. So just let them know so they can adjust their plans. The last appointment will be 11:30 on Thursday. So she'll walk you through the whole process, but the more help you give us with advance notice, the better it will be for everybody. We don't want to make anyone feel like they didn't get a chance to run because they didn't get started until 11:15 on Thursday. Okay? All right, thank you, Ms. Judy. Did I miss anything?
Thank you. You can also find the results of at the end of the day for who the candidates that have qualified on the website, on the city clerk's website, a web page, excuse me. So we will be posting as candidates come in and qualify. So you can stay up to date that way, or you can call the office and we will let you know.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll do a live comment, then we'll go to virtual. Anyone live in the chamber that wants to come on down there. Don't forget to put your name into the microphone.
It's not, no. There it goes.
Good evening, Mayor. Lisa Kate with Newberry Street. I just wanted to make the announcement that we received approved today, and back by public demand, we are going to do a spring festival. We told all the vendors at the end of the fall, it's a little bit smaller, it had some good turnout, had a good festival, and they've been asking me the last couple of years why we won't return to the spring, and we just worked around West Fast, and I think it just kind of slipped up. So we are going to try it on May 1st. It's a Saturday. We're shortening a little bit, 9 to 4:30. We don't get into the darkening hours, and of course, we don't have the alcohol anymore. It'll be down Seaboard, and like I said, I got people this afternoon, and looking forward to a spring fling.
We have a nice partnership with the farm department.
Yes, absolutely. We've talked to Joel.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions about spring festival? If you remind me, Ms. Lisa, I'll try to look and get some volunteers to set up. All right, any other live comment? Anyone want to introduce themselves that might have qualified for commission? Anybody? Only question. And have to be used that microphone eventually. All right, we're going to move to virtual comments. Any virtual information?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Marlon Day.
Mr. Marlowe.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. I am Marlon Day. I'm with the Electrical County Library District, the Newberry branch manager here in Newberry. The library is starting a new program, and as y'all know, I'm kind of passionate about early childhood literacy, and I'm kind of excited about it. I wanted to share it with you tonight. It's called the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. This program is designed to empower families to read with infants and toddlers, building skills for future success. Caregivers can register at our website and commit to reading 1,000 books to their little ones before kindergarten. Parents who register can track their reading online and receive a quarterly email filled with librarian recommended book lists and reading tips. And when caregivers complete the program, their child earns a certificate and a small prize from the library district. There's no set time frame for the program, so parents and babies can complete it at their own pace. Books read at daycare and stories read multiple times all count. I know I read Brown Bear to my son probably 1,000 times, just itself. And the idea behind 1,000 Books for Kindergarten program is to encourage bonding between caregivers and children through a fun approach to early literacy, and to help young children develop positive attachments to reading and gain the confidence they need to become strong readers. Reading to children helps develop critical pre-reading skills that provide a solid reading foundation. So we're kind of excited about it. More information can be found on our website. And I'd ask that you'd share this with any of your constituents, including ones with little preschoolers or preschoolers on the way. Thank you.
1,000 books before kindergarten. Well done. You guys are always coming up with creative programs for our kids, and we certainly appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for Mom about that, please? That's good. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Any other virtual hand raised?
No, sir.
All right. We'll close public announcement. We'll move to our consent agenda. Got a motion to approve the consent agenda as opposed. So moved. Have a motion from Commissioner Clark. Second. A second from Commissioner Martin. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. That's going to move us to public hearings and ordinances. We're at item 9 on tonight's agenda, ladies and gentlemen, which is a quasi judicial. When this board sits in quasi judicial, they move from being a legislative body determining policy to a judicial body determining evidence. So we enter into a quasi judicial. I'm going to begin by reading the procedures that we're going to follow tonight. In a moment, I'm going to ask Ms. Judy to swear everybody in, and then I'll get Rich, there he is on that screen, to read it into the record for us. So in a minute, I'm going to ask him to read the ordinance resolution number by title only. And then I'm going to explain the rules concerning testimony. It's primarily substantial and competent evidence must be met when the board makes a decision. And it shall say the following, quote, all public testimony taken under oath, everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence, and giving opinion testimony is limited to experts, closing arguments limited to the evidence of record. We have determined in here that our quasi judicial, as long as no one new enters the Zoom meeting or enters the chamber, I'm not going to read all of these again. So Dallas is going to help me make sure and let me know if someone new does enter. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Rich or Scott, if you would please read the ordinance on second reading into the record.
You go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2021-08 CPA 21-03. An ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the city of Newberry, comprehensive plan of 10 or fewer acres of land under the small scale development amendment procedures established under the small scale amendment provisions of section 163.3187 Florida statutes as amended, providing for a change in land use classification from Alachua County rural agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to city of Newberry agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida, parcel number 02667-007-000, consisting of approximately 5.01 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Ms. Judy, I'm going to ask you to swear everybody in. When we swear in the hybrid meeting, it can get a little awkward. I'd ask anyone here live that is going to speak to either 9 or 10. Can we swear those in together? I think we can swear those in together, either 9 or 10. If you would please stand. If you're virtual, could you please click the little hand symbol at the bottom of your screen? Let us know that you need to be sworn in. Dallas is going to help us move around the virtual world, and we'll help Miss Judy see the live world. So Miss Wendy, will you be our guinea pig? And we'll begin with you. Miss Judy's going to say the oath. And then I just need anyone who is going to swear in to say their name and that they do. Go ahead, Miss Judy.
Do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Wendy Kinzer Maxwell, I do.
Been duly sworn.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else in the live chamber of Dallas. We have anyone with their virtual hand raised?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have a Tammy C with her hand raised.
Okay, Miss Cammie, did you hear the oath?
Yes, I did. Cammie Copeland, I do.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else with their hand raised?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you much. All right, we're going to go around and ask for ex parte on this ordinance. Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Clark. I have none as well. And that will take us into the presentation order. This is the part that I'm not going to do again, as long as no one else joins the meeting. We're going to begin with a staff overview and then the applicant presentation with no time limit. And then the staff is going to have the chance to report and give their recommendation also with no time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. That's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to the commission on this item will be given 3 minutes to do so. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to cross-examine. The staff will have the opportunity to cross-examine, and the members of the decision-making body through the chair will be able to ask questions of the staff, the applicant, or any participant. And then we'll hear final arguments from the applicant and staff related solely to the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing and introduced into the record. And then the city attorney will advise decision-making bodies, applicable law and factual findings must be made to approve or deny the application. Then we're going to deliberate the application. After deliberations, we will take a vote to approve conditions, continue, or deny. That's procedure we're going to follow for all the quasi-judicials that we have here with us tonight. And with that, we'll begin with Ms. Wendy with the staff overview.
Thank you. Mayor, Commissioners, this is an application to change the future land use map, the future land use classification on property that was recently annexed into the city of Newberry. And the next slide, essentially the process starts with their annexation into the city, and then the future land use map has to be changed to be the city of Newberry classification. So we change from the county classifications to the city classifications. And this is the first step to change the future land use. This is the second hearing before the city commission at which you are able to enact the ordinance if you so choose to approve it. The next slide will show you the overall location of the property down in the southwest part of the city. The next slide gives you a closer look into where the property is located on the north side of Southwest 90th Avenue. It's about a quarter of a mile from Southwest 282nd or State Road, County Road 337. It's about 5 acres, and you can see the grayish colors in there that represent what is the city, the darker gray, and the lighter gray is the county designations. The next slide. So the property is within the city of Newberry, and this is a request that went before the Planning and Zoning Board on February 1st. They recommended approval. The City Commission did hear this item on the 8th of February and recommended, they approved it on first reading. And the next slide gives you staff's recommendation for approval, and that you would approve ordinance 2020-08 for application 2103. This is your second reading.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wendy. Since I see the recommendations, does that mean the applicant does not wish to make a presentation?
The applicant is here if she wants to at least
I can't hear you.
make a comment.
I'm here, no comment.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Okay, that's going to take us to public comment. Dallas, if you'll put our phone number up, ladies and gentlemen, we're on item number 9 of tonight's published agenda. It is a quasi-judicial second reading on ordinance 2021-08. We have come to public comment. Staff recommendation is to approve. You'll have opportunity 3 minutes to call in and talk to us about this ordinance. All you need to do to accomplish that is dial the phone number on your screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen. You see a little hand symbol. Simply click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment, then we'll move to virtual comments. Anyone live in the chamber like to address the commission? Seeing none. Anyone virtually with their hand raised, Alice? Seeing none. That will take us back to the quasi-judicial. Ms. Cammy, did you hear anything that you'd like to cross-examine?
No.
Thank you. I'm assuming staff does not want to cross-examine themselves. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions for staff? None? Seeing none. Ms. Cammy, would you like to make a final argument? You do not have to if you don't want to.
No.
All right, thank you. Rich, would you please advise the decision-making body as to the applicable law?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we're governed by the substantial and competent evidentiary standard based on the testimony that we've heard and the evidence that's been put forth by staff and the witnesses tonight.
Thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve conditions, continue or deny the application.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Norfleet. Are there any questions or comments from the dais on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, if you'll put our phone number up, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of item 9 on tonight's published agenda. This is our first quasi judicial of the evening. This is ordinance 2021-08. We have a motion probably second on the floor for approval. Now would be the appropriate time to call in and make a comment on this motion that is on the floor. All you need to do to accomplish that is dial the phone number on the screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, see a little hand symbol. Simply click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment, then we'll go to virtual comment. Do we have anyone live in the chamber who'd like to address the commission? Seeing none, do we have any virtual hand raised? Seeing none, we'll come back for a roll call vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. That will take us to item 10. Now we are in a quasi judicial. I'm going to go ahead. We're going to, has anyone new entered the room, Dallas? Okay, well, we'll go through it again one more time. It's all right. I'm going to go ahead and ask Rich to read that ordinance into the record for us. And then I'll go through our presentation order. Rich, are you ready to read ordinance 2021-09?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 2021-09 LDR 21-06, an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of less than 10 acres pursuant to an application by the city of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the city of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agriculture A zoning district to City of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcel 02667-007-000, consisting of approximately 5.01 continuous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Rich. I'm going to go ahead and explain the rules concerning testimony, and that's primarily that substantial and competent evidence must be met when the board makes a decision, and it shall state the following, and I quote, all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into the evidence, and giving of opinion testimony is limited to experts. Closing arguments will be limited to the evidence of record. Before I explain the presentation order, do we have anyone new in the room that needs to be sworn in for the second reading of ordinance 2021-09? If you do, please click the little hand symbol and we'll make sure we get you sworn in. Everyone else has already been sworn in for this agenda item. No? Okay, let's do ex parte. Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Clark. Hearing no ex parte. I'm going to go ahead and explain the presentation order. We're going to hear from the staff first with an overview, and then the applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit. Then we'll hear the staff report and the recommendation also with no time limit. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener staff, so that's going to move us to public comment. Any member of the public will be given 3 minutes to address the commission. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to cross-examine. Staff will have the opportunity to cross-examine. Members of the decision-making body through the chair ask questions of the staff, applicant, or the participants, and then we'll hear final arguments from the applicant or staff and the participants. And then the city attorney will advise decision-making body its applicable law and factual findings, and we'll enter into deliberations. After deliberations, we will take a motion to approve conditions, continue, or deny. We did our expertise. We read it in the record. Miss Wendy, are you taking us through this one as well?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead.
Right. This is an application to change the zoning on the property from Alachua County Rural Agriculture to City of Newberry Agricultural. The next slide shows you the process that it's gone through. As we said in the last part, the future land use map had to be changed first, which you have approved. And the next step is to rezone the property from the county designation to the city designation. And this is the second public hearing for that. The next slide will show you the location of the property, again, down this in the southwest part of the city. And the next slide gives you the location on the north side of Southwest 90th Avenue to the east of County Road 337. The next slide will give you the actions of the Planning and Zoning Board. They did recommend to the City Commission that you approve this ordinance to change the zoning. Both zoning categories for the city and the county both allow a density of 1 unit per 5 acres. At your hearing on the 8th of February, the City Commission did approve on first reading this ordinance. The next slide gives you staff's recommendation, and that's to approve the ordinance for application LDR 2106 on second reading. And this is contingent upon approval of CPA 21-03, which you just did approve. And note that the plan amendment, the CPA 2103, is a small scale plan amendment, which will become effective after 30 days from the action that you take tonight. And the zoning would be the same. That concludes the report, and the applicant is present.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wendy. Since I see the recommendation, does the applicant wish to make a presentation?
No.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. That's going to move us to public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to item 10 on tonight's published agenda. This is quasi judicial, second reading of ordinance 2021-09. If you'd like to call in and comment on this ordinance, this agenda item, now would be the appropriate time to do so. You can accomplish that by dialing the phone number on your screen. That will get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, see a little hand symbol. Simply click that hand symbol. Let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with virtual comment or live comment, then we'll move to virtual comment. Do I have anyone live tonight who'd like to address the commission on this ordinance? Seeing none. Do we have any virtual hand raised? Seeing none. That's going to take us down. Ms. Cammie, would you like to cross-examine anything that you heard staff's presentation?
No.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Wendy, I'm assuming you don't want to cross-examine yourself. That's going to take us
No.
to members of the decision-making body. Does anyone have any questions on this second reading? Seeing none. Okay, we'll go to Ms. Cammie. Would you like to make a final argument? You don't have to if you don't want to.
No.
Okay, Ms. Wendy. Okay, thank you. Rich, would you please advise the decision-making body as applicable law?
Mr. Mayor, we're again governed by the substantial and competent evidence standard.
Thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll hear a motion to approve, continue, or deny.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin to approve as recommended, a second from Commissioner Clark. Are there any questions or comments on the motion on the floor from the dais? Seeing none, we'll put our phone number up. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of item 10 on tonight's published agenda. This is the second reading of ordinance 2021-09. I have a motion, probably second on the floor, to approve this ordinance. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on that motion, now would be the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do is dial the phone number on your screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, you see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. Let us know you'd like to address the commission. Make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to take live comment, then we'll move to virtual comment. Do we have anybody live in the chamber who'd like to address the commission on this motion on the floor? Seeing none, we'll go to virtual comment. Dallas, do we have any virtual hand raised? Seeing none, we'll come back to the dais. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That will take us to item 11. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean to go quickly, but these are second readings of this. We've heard them in P&Z. We've heard them the first time. So we're just trying to be efficient. For items 11 and 12, I'm going to ask that we swear in on those at the same time as well. And since we are still in quasi judicial, Dallas, we have anyone new has entered? Wonderful. Then we're going to begin with Rich. Please read ordinance on second reading 2021-04 into the record, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2021-09 LDR 21-06, an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, relating to the amendment of the official zoning atlas for the rezoning of less than 10 acres pursuant to an application by the city of Newberry, amending the official zoning atlas of the city of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from Alachua County Agriculture A zoning district to city of Newberry Agricultural A zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida, which have been annexed thereto, tax parcel 02667-007. 000, consisting of approximately 5.01 contiguous acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Rich. Ms. G, I'm going to ask you to swear everyone in for item 11 or 12. You're here to speak on either 11 or 12. If you're here virtually, please click the hand symbol at the bottom of your screen. Let us know that you need to be sworn in. If you're live, please stand, and Dallas will help us with the virtuals, and we'll help Miss Judy with the live. Miss Wendy, we're going to use you as a guinea pig again. And Miss Judy, go ahead.
I swear from the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Wendy Kinzer Maxwell, I do.
You have been duly sworn.
Thank you. Dallas, do we have any virtual hands raised? Do you have anyone live in the chamber that needs to be sworn in for 11 or 12? Okay, then we're going to move to ex parte. Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Clark. I have none as well. And that will take us to the staff overview. Miss Wendy, go ahead.
Okay. This application, the next slide, we'll go to that. This is an amendment of future land use map. This is a request by Billy Belts, who's the agent for BMB Squared LLC. And this is to change from low density residential to commercial. Next slide. Well, essentially, when you look at the next slide where the map is, let's go to the map because it's a little bit, let's skip over this one too, and we'll just talk about this. That this is your second public hearing, but as you know, you saw at your first public hearing, there are 3 lots that are part of this parcel. You can see the 2 in red and the one that's outlined in black that's still yellow. The yellow representing residential, single family, low density, 1 to 4 units per acre, and the commercial is represented by the red color. The property was platted back in the 1920s, and they had the residential lots there. But as you can see all along where the commercial is, the property is zoned commercial intensive, and this is a request to rezone, in this case, to change the future land use map first, which is your first step, so that the parcel can be used as one parcel and be developed as a small commercial development. Your next slide will show you the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board, and that was to recommend that the City Commission approve the ordinance that would allow for this change from residential to commercial so that the one parcel can be used in its entirety as commercial. And the City Commission heard this on first reading on January 25th, and staff's recommendation is for approval to enact ordinance 2021-04 for application CPA 21-01 on second reading.
Thank you, ma'am. Since I see the staff recommendations, that means the applicant does not wish to make a presentation. All right, that's going to move us to public comment since I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on item 11 on tonight's public agenda. This is ordinance 2021-04. If you'd like to call and make a comment on this agenda item, now is the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do to accomplish that is dial the phone number on your screen. That'll get you into the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, see the little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment, and then we'll move to virtual comment. Do we have anyone live in the chamber who'd like to address the commission on this agenda item? Seeing none, do we have any virtual hands raised? Seeing none, now we'll take us back to the quasi judicial. Would the applicant like to cross-examine anything staff said? Okay. Assuming Ms. Wendy doesn't want to cross-examine herself, that's going to move us to members of the decision-making body asking questions of the staff or the applicant. Do we have any questions from the dais? Commissioner Martin.
Wendy, maybe I am in the wrong spot, but this looks like a typo to me. Draft ordinance 2021-04. When you look at page 221 of the packet, it has 2021-09 on the top, and the language speaks to changing it from Alachua Ag to Newberry Ag. What say you?
That sounds like that's the wrong thing there. This is specifically for let's see, let me get the right one. This is for ordinance 2021-04. Yes, for CPA 2101, and that's to change it from agriculture to commercial. Well, not agriculture, the low density residential to commercial. This is the property that's over on 2741 across from the blend. So you want to make sure that you have the right property in mind, and that that you have the right ordinance in front of you changing the low density residential to commercial.
So when we get to the motion, we'll need to correct that Scrivener's error.
Mhm.
Appears so. I'm trying to toggle. Hold on. Just a second. Is number 10 supposed to also read? Going back, sorry.
Mm-mm.
So we're
Let me see what
changing it
it's-
from county ag to city ag also? That's a mistake as well, I think. The language in the summary paragraph at the top on page 188. We have the applicant in the room. I don't think it isn't anything that we can't handle post, but
No, Mayor, I mean, on the agenda, I don't have all that. I don't see that in front of me, but on the agenda, it is listed correctly for item number 11 to go from low density residential to commercial. And number 12 that shows the zoning to go from residential to commercial.
The agenda item is correct. I think Commissioner Martin is pointing to a Scrivener's error in the backup material,
Okay, I don't,
which I think we can fix just in the motion
yeah, that, I think you could fix that because I have the correct information on mine
on your
that I
end.
have, so, yeah.
So we just, in your backup material, it's listed as 2021-09. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, on page 221 of the backup.
Is that what you have, Mike?
I'm thinking we just cut and paste from item 10 is what happened.
Okay, so we'll fix that in the motion. That sound,
Applicant's not.
Yeah.
All right.
okay. Any other questions? Rich, you're good with that?
We're actually discussing, I think what I would like to do is, for purposes of our record, read the item 11 straight from the agenda.
Yeah, I think that works.
Yeah, I think that will work. Just,
I thought that's what you did, Rich. Sounded like it to me.
I read what was in the packet, and I think what I think Miss Wendy would agree with me that what's in the agenda for item number 11 is correct. And that's not what I read in. So just for purposes of clarity on the record, I want to read straight from the agenda, and then the motion, if it's a motion to approve, it would be based on the language in the agenda.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So this is, and I'm just going to read the whole thing, changing the future land use map from low density residential to commercial on the western portion of parcel 02263-003-000, which is ordinance 2021-04/CPA 21-01, an application by Billy Belts, agent for BMB Squared LLC owner, to amend the future land use plan map of the comprehensive plan by changing the future land use classification on the western portion of the property identified by Alachua County parcel number 02263-003-000 from low density residential 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre to commercial. The appropriate motion would be to pass the ordinance as read from the agenda by title only.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Okay, do we have any other questions on staff's presentation of the dais? Okay. Would the applicant like to make a final argument? Ms. Wendy, would you like to make a final argument? Okay. Mr. Attorney, would you please advise the decision-making body of the applicable law?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're governed by the substantial and competent evidentiary standard.
Okay, we'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Approval conditions continue or deny, and the motion will be based on the reading, the second reading of the ordinance straight from the agenda that Rich just gave us. Any deliberations? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Clark to approve based on the second reading of the ordinance to make sure we have all of our numbers right. Are there any questions or comments on the motion floor from the dais? Seeing none, we'll move to public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, Don't forget, we have about a 30-second delay on our hybrid meetings between our live feed and our virtual feed. If you'd like to call in, we're at the end of item 11 on tonight's published agenda. We have a motion, probably second on the floor for approval. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on that motion, now's the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do is dial the phone number on your screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. Let us know you'd like to address the commission. Make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment, then we'll go to virtual comment. Do everyone live in the chamber who'd like to address the commission? Seeing none, do we have any virtual hand raised? Seeing none, we'll come back. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Motion passed unanimously. Now, so have we have any new people enter the meeting? Okay, then we're going to move right to item 12, which we've already sworn in for. I'm going to go ahead and ask Rich to read on item 12.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 2021-05.
Number 10 and number 11 are supposed to be in tangent, or
9 and 10.
No,
are
11 and
tangent.
12.
11 and 12 are tangent.
11 and 12 are supposed to be
Okay,
in tandem.
Rich, why don't you read this right from the agenda too?
I believe that what we have in our draft ordinance is correct. Wendy, would you agree with
I'm
me?
looking at 2021-05/LDR 21-04 second reading.
Yes.
That is correct. That is the correct. And I've checked the packet. I do have that in front of me, the whole thing that you are looking at, and that this is correct.
Yes,
Okay,
I think it
back
is
on
too.
track. Go ahead, Rich.
Okay, an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida relating to the rezoning of less than 10 contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application by Billy Belts, agent for B&B Squared LLC owner, amending the official zoning atlas of the city of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from RSF2 residential single-family zoning district to CI commercial intensive zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida, lot 4 of tax parcel 02263-003-000, consisting of approximately 0.24 acre, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go ahead and do ex parte for ordinance 2021-05. Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Clark. I have none either. I have not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim third-party intervener status on this one as well, and we've already sworn in. So, Ms. Wendy, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, this is the application that will change the zoning on this property that you just considered and approved to change the future land use. An application by Billy Belts, and to change from RSF2, which is a residential category, to commercial intensive. This is regarding the lot on the westernmost part of that property. It's about 1/4 acre in size, and the lots 2 and 3 to the east are already zoned commercial intensive. And so this would make the entire parcel zone commercial intensive so that it can be used for small commercial development. The next slide shows you the overall process that we go through. This is a small change. The rezoning that will actually match the future land use is what the process is that we are going through now. This is your second hearing. The next slide shows you the location of the property on the west side of Southwest 250th Street, across from the blend. And you can see the darker color of the commercial intensive and the outline part of the property that is currently residential. The next slide gives you the Planning and Zoning Board recommendation, which is for approval. You heard the application for first reading on January 25th. And the next slide will give you the staff recommendation, which is to enact ordinance 2021-05 which is contingent upon approval of CPA 2101. And that concludes staff's report.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy. Since I'm seeing staff recommendation one last time, that means the applicant does not wish to make a presentation. All right, that's going to move us. Again, I have not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status. So we're going to move to public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on item 12 of tonight's published agenda. This is the second reading of ordinance 2021-05. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on this agenda item, now is the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do is dial the phone number on your screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, you see the little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment in the chamber, then we'll move to virtual comment. And I'm talking a little bit too fast. My 30-second window is not quite closed out. So I'm just going to kill just a few more seconds here. Do we have anyone live in the chamber who'd like to address the commission? Seeing none. Do we have any virtual hands raised? Seeing none, we will come back. And the applicant doesn't want to cross-examine. All right. I'm going to go ahead and assume Ms. Wendy does not. Members of the decision-making body, have any questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, seeing none. Would the applicant like to make a final argument? Ms. Wendy, would you like to make a final argument? She's shaking her head no. Rich, would you please advise the decision-making body on applicable law?
Mr. Mayor, we're once again governed by the substantial and competent evidentiary standard.
Thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll have a motion to approve conditions, continue or deny.
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Norfleet. Any questions or comments on the motion floor from the dais? Seeing none, we'll put our telephone number back up. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of item 12 on tonight's published agenda. This is the second reading of ordinance 2021-05. I have a motion probably second on the floor to approve this ordinance on second reading. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on this motion on the floor, now's the time to do so. All you need to do is dial the phone number on your screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. Let us know you let it address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment from the chamber. Then we'll go to virtual comments. Anyone live here tonight like to make a comment on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, do we have any virtual hand raised? Seeing none, we'll come back to the dais. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That'll move us to item 13. Once again, we're going to swear in for 13 and 14 together. Dallas, do we have anyone new who's entered the room? Okay, thank you. We'll go to item 13. And Rich, would you please read on first reading into the record ordinance 2021-06?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 2021-06, CPA 21-02. An ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended relating to an amendment to the future land use plan map of the city of Newberry comprehensive plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, 2 and 3 Florida statutes and in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from agriculture less than or equal to 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres to planned development on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcels 01927-000-000, 01932-000-000, 01933-002-000, consisting of approximately 289 acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Rich. We're going to go ahead and swear in again for 13 and 14. So if you are with us virtually and you need to swear in for either of those two items, please click the little hand symbol at the bottom of your screen. That'll let us know that you'd like to speak or you're planning on speaking. And once again, we're going to use you as a guinea pig, Miss Wendy. So Miss Judy, if you would please administer the oath.
Do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Wendy Kinzer Maxwell, I do.
Thank you. Do you have anyone live who wish to speak to these? We have 2 gentlemen standing. Could you maybe come to the mic and let's just turn that on and both of you can give your names and swear, that way we get it into the record. And just go give us your name and whether you swear.
Jerry Diedenbach, and I do swear.
Thank you, sir. One more.
Ryan Thompson, I do swear.
Thank you, sir. Dallas, do we have any virtual hands raised? Okay, everyone is duly sworn. Let's go ahead and do ex parte for this item. Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Clark. I do not as well. Again, I'm a non-voting mayor. Okay, so we'll begin with the staff overview. Miss Wendy, take it away.
Thank you. This application is to amend the future land use map. This is a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment. This is for over approximately 289 acres. Your next slide. This goes through the process because you have a large-scale plan amendment, anything over 10 acres. You do go before the Planning and Zoning Board for a public hearing, and you do go to the city commission for 2 public hearings. After the first public hearing, which is tonight, if you so recommend, this application would go to the Department of Economic Opportunity for the state of Florida for their review. And that's the expedited review process. And once they and other state agencies and local agencies provide their comments, this can come back to the city commission for the second reading and a decision on whether to adopt the ordinance. And the next process will be rezoning, which you'll hear about later. And we go to the map. Property is located up in the northeastern, well, kind of in the center along southwest, oh my goodness, along State Road 26 on the south side. If you go to your next slide, you'll get a better look. Well, you won't get a better look at that property, because if you go back to that other slide, the location, it's a little bit just to the west of where the Alachua County Equestrian Center, Agricultural and Equestrian Center is, being located on the south side. And it's about 289 acres, and it is 3 different parcels. And I'm going to let that concludes staff's report, and we can go on to the applicant's presentation that can go over the specifics of the application.
Does that conclude your report or just the overview, Ms. Wendy?
Just the overview. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, we'll hear from the applicant now. Come on down, sir.
I am aghast whether your next career is going to be air traffic control, auctioneer, or the guy who reads certain terms and conditions may apply. All warranties are. This is amazing. You should give lessons to other communities. I know Mr. Belts knows that well. Jerry Diedenbach, CHW. I'm going to just give a brief introduction of this, and then Ryan Thompson's actually going to present the items before you. I presented the items at the Planning and Zoning Board about a month ago. We had a couple folks that were commenting on the items. We had some folks call in. I actually had the opportunity that Friday after the Planning and Zoning Board meeting to go out and meet with Miss Michelle Seitzmer and Ms. Davis McGlathery, who is her next door neighbor. We walked the property, talked about what the actual master plan would look like, actually made some changes that are reflected in the plan will be here before you tonight. So I mentioned that because this is all about a public process. We have a large scale process before you tonight that looks at bringing an active adult age restricted community to the city of Newberry. And these things take a lot of time. I told everybody at the Planning and Zoning Board meeting that this would be about a 20-year plan. So the next 2 decades, you'll see this evolve in the eastern portion of the city, right off the center of the downtown here. And with that, Mr. Thompson, who's going to try to speak as fast as I do, but not as fast as you do, Mr. Mayor.
I manage expectations. Ryan Thompson, project manager for CHW, agent for the applicant. Happy to be here this evening and for progressing. Thank you. This is Newberry ARC, American Retirement Communities. It specializes in 55 years old and older communities for active adults. The request is a large-scale comprehensive plan amendment from agriculture to plan development, and accompanying that is a rezoning application from agriculture to plan development. The intent is to create a multi-phased single-family residential age-restricted development with active and passive recreation facilities and internal neighborhood scale commercial along State Road 26. This development will occur over a period of 20 years, approximately 50 homes a year. It's a very compact development. It diversifies the housing stock that's within the city of Newberry currently with that age restricted offering. And it's adjacent to the city's core. The project is located on State Road 26 with access there. And then it also extends down to Southwest 15th Avenue. So there'll be some opportunities for improving that corridor. And being age restricted, there will be no impacts to the school system. This is the timeline for the application. We met with the city manager, Mr. New, and planning and public works staff back in September of last year. Submitted right at the end of the year. Been working with staff since during January, then went before the Planning and Zoning Board on February 1st, and we're before you this evening. As Ms. Wendy stated, this upon your favorable recommendation this evening, they'll go to the Department of Economic Opportunity and then come back for a second reading. This is a context map of the project site. Back in 2015, we looked at the comprehensive plan. What resulted from that was the corporate park future land use. As you may recall, we had several workshops in this room, in fact, with community leaders, stakeholders, and general public. And three of the things that really strike home that apply to this project is growing from the city's core outward, not the opposite. Logical and supportive development based on the existing infrastructure. It is supported by infrastructure, as I'll show shortly. And then a balanced approach with the diversity of uses, offering a housing community that's not currently within the city of Newberry. This is an aerial map. As you can see, it does have frontage along State Road 26 and then along 15th to the south. The existing future land use is agriculture. And again, we're requesting plan development for the site. The existing zoning is agriculture, and we are requesting plan development. This is the preliminary development plan. It will have a central corridor, and from that, roads will branch off for the residential portion. Again, it will be built over 20 years with approximately 50 lots per year. Area A is the bulk of the site, and it'll have a maximum of 900 dwelling units. There will be a detached product. And then Area B is the small portion that you see along State Road 26, and that'll allow for 70,000 square feet of non-residential. That is intended to support the community so that they don't have to travel out on 26 to be able to meet their daily needs. And then here in green shown is about 21% that'll be common area. That'll include stormwater, but also passive and active recreation. And it also includes a 20-foot buffer around the entire property. As you can see, Mr. Dienbach mentioned that we met with the neighbors and along the east side of the property, identified a low area, and as a result have shifted one of the common areas slightly south to be able to address that. Now the preliminary development plan does offer an opportunity for flexibility when we get into engineering and geotech and those kind of technical aspects, but we wanted to make sure that it was reflected here on this plan. And looking at the utilities from the project site, it will extend from the west up Doc Corrales Road, as well as the sanitary sewer, the extended from the lift station there. And with that, both the City of Newberry staff, as well as the Planning and Zoning Board, have recommended approval for CPA 2102 and LDR 2105. And we have proposed motions here based on the competent and substantial evidence presented in this application, staff's report, staff's presentation, our presentation for you this evening.
Thank you very much. We
Yes, sir.
appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ms. Wendy, we'll hear staff's report and recommendation at this time.
Well, staff just would conclude our presentation as shown in the PowerPoint, the last couple slides of that just shows that the Planning and Zoning Board did recommend approval, as the applicant pointed out, and staff also recommends approval of the ordinance to change the land use. And we appreciate that incorporation of the change to the preliminary development plan. So staff would recommend on the next slide, based on the justification and presentation by the applicant, that the City Commission approve ordinance 2021-6 for CPA 2102.
Okay,
That
thank
will
you.
conclude.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, and I want to pause on that for just 1 second and point out how amazing that is actually. And I think it's very commendable to the work that you guys have done in the community. This is clearly a big development, an exciting development. We're excited that you brought it to us. But to get this far with a unanimous vote on the PNZ, to get in front of the commission and not have this room, excuse me, full of people who are concerned and anxious, that really does speak volumes to the fact that you guys have gone out and met with folks. I appreciate that. And that's going to take us to public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on item 12. Is that right? No, we're on item 13. 13. We're on item 13 of tonight's published agenda. We have come to public comment. If you'd like to call in and speak to this ordinance, now is the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do is dial the phone number on the screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen. You see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. You'll be given 3 minutes to talk about this ordinance if you'd like to do so. We're going to start with live comment, then we'll go to virtual comment. Do I have anyone in the chamber who'd like to speak? Come on down, sir.
I'll introduce myself now, huh?
There you go.
Right, for.
Is there a green light on? You got to speak into the
Green
microphone and
light
make sure you
is
stay
on.
pointed at me.
Green light is on.
There you go.
My name's Tony, yes. So now I can publicly say I am running for commission, Group 5. With this particular planning you guys have, I have had, and I have talked to multiple residents in Newberry that do not agree with it. The first concern that they have is traffic. The second concern is, how can you, I mean, is it worded to where kids are not gonna be, I did hear planning a zone where there was gonna be wording that, but is that set in stone? I mean, is that, couldn't that be changed later on? It could not be changed.
Deed restrictions, right? Deed restrictions.
Is that correct? So later on, 20 years from now, when this development gets approved, or 20 years when it's built, so there's not a commission that could bypass that because of the deed. Is that correct? Okay, so then I guess my only concern is the traffic. And it's not just mine. It's a lot of residents that I've talked with and spoke to. That's their concern. That's the only thing that I have with that huge development. And that's it. Thank you. My name is Tony, by the way.
Thank you, sir.
Tony with a Y, Judy Rice. Yes, Y, not an I. That's a girl. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that comment. Do we have any other live comments? Yes, we have any virtual hands raised? No. Okay. That's going to take us, would the applicant like to cross-examine? Anything that was said tonight? Address anything?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ryan Thompson. Just want to express that this will be developed over 20 years. It's not going to all occur overnight. We're also, there's a stormwater pond that's adjacent to the site that's right at the intersection of County Road 235, I believe. And we are in conversations with DOT to look at that, to see if we can do some kind of negotiation where we share their stormwater on our site and access that and have a full light there. That is kind of a long-term plan that nothing with DOT happens overnight. So we are working towards that. We think that that would be a significant help to any traffic in and out of the project site. But again, be about 50 homes per year. So over a 20-year span. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Miss Wendy, did you hear anything you'd like to cross-examine?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to members of the decision-making body. Ask any questions of staff, applicant, or participants. Any questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
So when is the development planning on starting? I mean, you have up to 20 years, so when is? Yeah.
if you just stay there for a minute.
Man, might as well.
Yes. They'll start as soon as they can. We'll be looking at the planning process, so that will be another month or two. Then engineering will be another 4 to 6 months, and then they'll be able to start construction. And they'll move from the Doc Crawla side to the to the east, and then the commercial component will either be could be at any point, and depends on what the demand is there and when that'll get going. Our clients specialize in the retirement community aspect of it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, now what if those first 50 houses sell rather quickly? I mean, are you gonna wait for another year? Or are you gonna go ahead and increase your
The
timeline?
numbers that we're giving is based on what they've informed us is their capacity. So hopefully the market is doing great, but I don't know that they can move much faster than that.
And what part of the property has been set aside for commercial?
Along the frontage, if I could have the presentation back, there's about 600 feet deep from State Road 26 is commercial area. It's area B on the preliminary development plan.
How many acres is that?
About 15 acres, I believe. I may be way off on that. Oh, the red, yes. I can get back to you on that on the acreage. Yeah.
So, what's that, less than 5%? About 5%?
You have a percentage for the commercial
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor.
of the whole development? While they're figuring out the percentage, Mike, can you tell us roughly their growth rate compared to our other developers in town? Is their model more aggressive, less aggressive, similar?
Mr. Mayor, it really depends. I think Countryway Town Center, we're seeing grow at a rate of 40 to 50 homes a year. And I spoke to the developer recently, and he indicated that was his intended pace right on through. So they're getting about 350 units. That's about a 7-year build out for them, 7 to 8 year build out. The Miranda product and the DR Horton product, they're currently building 50-ish homes a year between them. They've indicated that they prefer to ramp up to a much higher rate. They think the demand is there. So they're speaking in terms of 200 homes from their developments annually. So I'd say that this is probably the norm for what we've been seeing, but it wouldn't keep pace for what we're being advised is coming down the pipes.
Okay, thank you. Got your numbers?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you to your staff. 17 acres and 6%.
You're not even a math teacher, right? So it's going to be senior, so it won't have an impact on the school, I guess. Okay. I have no other questions.
Other question, Mr. Clark?
What are the site-built homes, mobile homes? What are the homes coming in here? Modular homes? I mean, what kind of development is this as far as this build out?
That's not really my specialty, so I don't know I know it's not mobile homes. I know it's Mr. Deanbach.
Speak up here. Hi, Jerry Deanbach. It's all site built home.
All site built.
Yeah. it is highly likely in today's market that there will be modular components, meaning that there will be pre-framed walls. Obviously, there are truss packs that goes into this, but they will be site-built on-slab homes, single-family detached, so they will have small yards associated with them under common maintenance area, but it is not mobile homes, nor is it pre-manufactured.
And what's the square footage of these per homes?
We think that they will vary. There'll probably be 3 tiers of size because not everybody wants to live in the same thing, but your traditional adult, active, senior citizen, anywhere from like 1,500 to 2,700, just depending on personal desire. A lot of people want to go smaller, but there are still some who want to have a little elbow room from their house after 55 years.
And what's the amount per, what's the lot's gonna be cut out, or do we know that yet? When this thing's actually developed, are we quarter acre,
Oh, no.
0 lot lines?
No, we won't be a 0 lot line, Mr. Mayor, and they won't be in the quarter acre. They'll be in the range of probably 50, 60, 70-foot lots. And then they'll obviously pan out toward the back, you know. Yeah, there'll be a variety of lot sizes, larger lots around the perimeter to match the larger lots that are in the context area, and then smaller in the core, and then smaller when you're around like a definitive amenity center where you have a clubhouse and tennis and pool and stuff like that. Those will be more like, almost like a patio type home. People that want to live there. We also did propose, and I know that Ryan was going to mention it in to address the question of traffic in there. We will be recommending that they have golf carts inside the actual development itself. And the purpose of putting the commercial up there on State Road 26 is that it answers a lot of the needs of what the residents would have. So if you need to go to doctor, dentist, lawyer, accountant, grocer, pharmacist, it's right there at the front of the development. You don't have to get out on State Road 26. They can stay within the development itself and actually keep the trips inside the overall neighborhood.
Is there a site plan already made for the infrastructure?
There is a backbone infrastructure plan made that has the primary road extending from State Road 26 down to 15th. 15th will need to have amendments to it. And there is a street plan that we have that's laid out in there that brings the utilities in through Doc Corrales and then routes them through the project. But it doesn't get on a map of this scale because it's a preliminary map there.
No lots, no lots have not been surveyed out or cut or drawn yet?
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay.
Only a concept plan has been with a fat pencil.
Okay. That's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Other questions, comments from the dais? Commissioner Martin?
I know that some of those questions are answered a little bit in the backup with regards to trips and sewer, sanitary water, starting on page 375, but can we just kind of verbalize through some of those? Are you prepared to speak to some of those a little bit more?
I could, but I thought that probably Ms. Kinzer would be best to talk. There is, obviously, there is water and sewer capacity available in the city, and the city will be increasing its plant capacities over time. And so over the next 2 decades, that this project will not exceed the capacities of the city. Wendy, did you want to give any specific numbers in your concurrency?
No, that's a statement that we are planning on making. I don't know if Jamie would like to address that directly.
Well, hang on one second, guys, because right now we're talking about land use and zoning. Capacity is a separate question, so we can give them all the land use and zoning they want. If the capacity is not there, they stop dead in their tracks. So they understand that problem, and they're ready and willing to address it. So in this quasi judicial, we're talking about land use. Capacity will be the next question, and they're the ones at risk. If they get there and there's not capacity, they can't move forward. Doesn't matter if they've got the zoning or the land use, doesn't make any difference.
That would be the fact.
Can we make the zoning changes contingent on an age restriction?
We are voluntarily putting a deed restricted active adult 55 and above on there. And so that will be a condition of the zoning, and it will also be adopted by a deed restriction into the property so that it can't not be arbitrarily changed by any commission in the future. We would have to actually go through a vote, of the residents. So you'll have kind of 2 layers of protection there. There will be senior citizens in there.
Does that speak to the ownership or the ownership and the residency?
It speaks to the ownership and the residency, and it also has a disallowment or a prohibition about having like grandma and grandpa adopting a kid and then bringing a child there, and the child actually living with grandparents. That was asked during the planning and zoning board meeting. We have no problem with that either.
Okay.
Yeah. But that happens occasionally. We don't want to upset the apple cart for these folks on the other side who don't have grandchildren there.
Understood.
Commissioner Norfleet?
I got just a couple questions. Kind of how many points of access are y'all looking for this project, and I guess where, and kind of what are some of the planned ways y'all are planning on accessing it, or as a traffic signals or kind of moments?
Dallas is going to put the presentation back up there. The primary point of ingress and egress will be on Newberry Road. And if you leave it right there, that's fine, because that shows you, to Commissioner Martin's earlier question, of a preliminary road system through there. The primary point of access will be on Newberry Road. We are in consultation and discussions with the Florida Department of Transportation to potentially take their stormwater basin, which is on the west side of the property there, and come in at 235. So we would come in at the traffic light, because we've been advised that we would not get a second traffic light in that close proximity in the rural area. There are numerous points of connection. The primary spine runs north to south from State Road 26 down to 15th. We realize that 15th in portions does not have adequate right-of-way, so we would be contributing right-of-way along the south side of the development to widen the right-of-way in that area. So we'd have a north-south connector through, and then have your connections on the north and the south side. In addition, you can see along several points of the western perimeter, like one along Doc Corrales, right underneath the label for Doc Corrales. Thank you, Commissioner Martin. It would be a connection there. That would be an entry point for water and sewer, and it would also have a vehicular and a pedestrian connection in at that point. Further down the western property line, thank you very much, Dallas, is an additional connection to properties that are undeveloped. And so consistent with your comprehensive plan and land development regulations, we have placed multiple connections in there. If you go a little further to the south, there's another large parcel there. We are planning a stub out there. So as the city of Newberry grows and properties between us and, let's say, the existing Miranda development or others by Dr. Alice grow, we can interconnect. That way you are not relying solely on all the trips going to Newberry Road or to 15th. They could connect and create and reinforce a grid system. Similarly, on the eastern portion, up at the kind of like the northernmost point, very good, thank you, Dallas. We are proposing a connection be stubbed to that. So should those larger properties there along the east side develop, a connection could come over, and I believe that is 222nd. That's where Miss Seitzmer and Miss McGlaffrey live, down on that road. They're down to the far side of that. And then at the very bottom side, right there, we are proposing connection there. So along the east, west, north, and south sides, we are proposing multiple connections. So as this develops over time, it can help reinforce and create a grid type network of roads and sidewalks in the city of Newberry.
On 15th Avenue, are y'all looking that might have to do some upgrades on that?
Yes, sir, indeed. Mr. Mayor, as we discussed during the planning and zoning board meeting today, we know that 15th is chip sealed in there. And so one of the first questions, the only thing I was going to say, when Commissioner Farnsworth asked the question, when does the planning really start for this? There was a question that was asked at the planning and zoning board. The planning actually starts when you sit down with Mr. New back in September of last year, because at that point in time, your staff, planning staff, public works staff, city manager, tell us all the areas in town where we're going to have to work collaboratively together. And so yes, the answer is to that question, that we realize that 15th will require upgrades in there, and that this development will participate in some form as that road gets formalized. It's a beautiful street today. Huge oak trees overlie a lot of it. So getting the road in there will have to be done in a collaborative manner. When we were at the meeting in September, we were talking about like Stephen Juanita Fletcher's property to the south there. So the road may need to, deflect a little and come back up to still maintain that canopy and that character of that street. But we realize that, our traffic will utilize that. Probably have some folks in there that, drive that direction. So there will be some some collaboration, obviously, and some contribution from this property into making sure that 15th, advances in the future. All part of the strategic plan that starts day one really is the best answer to the earlier question from Mr. Farnsworth.
Last question.
Sure.
On the 20-year build out, are y'all restricting yourselves to that? Or is that going to be kind of open ended?
That is our, Mr. Mayor, that is our projection on 50 houses a year, about a house a week. If North Central Florida becomes the receptor area from people expatriating from South Florida or leaving the snowbird land and coming down here, if that accelerates, that is possible that would accelerate. But that's why we have a phased plan, so that as we're moving along, we move somewhat at risk to concurrency, but we also use that number as a benchmark. It could go faster. Hopefully it won't go slower. All projections look like North Central Florida with expansions to UF Health, the Veterans Administration hospitals, HCA, North Central Florida Regional Medical Center will all draw this aging population to North Central Florida for healthcare, quality of life, social and amenities that we have here in Washoe County and the city of Newberry.
Any other questions from the dais for the applicant staff? Commissioner Farnsworth.
So the upgrade to 15 probably won't happen for 20 years whenever that connector is eventually made.
Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't say it would be that long. I mean, 20 years would be all the way at the end. And you want to be ahead really of the fact that you don't take roads into failure. My guess, if I were to stand here today and crystal ball it, I'd say within the next decade, truthfully, because when you want to make that utility connection, I know that Mr. New would advise us, as he did today on a first time project meeting, I want a loop of utilities through the project. I don't want a dead end. So I would presume within about a decade, not at the end of the project.
Okay. My only concern is I don't think there's enough property set aside for commercial. That's the only other concern I have.
If I could ask, Mr. Mayor, you would like to see more than 17 to 20 acres of commercial in there?
I would.
Okay. PD amendment number 1, and we'll keep our hand to the wind, see how that goes.
All right. Any other questions, Commissioner Clark?
The SMF, is that just green space?
SMS stands for Stormwater Management Facility.
Stormwater management.
And so the large 2 basins on the north are in depressional areas, but throughout the development, at some of the corner points, there are some lower lying areas there. So there will be stormwater management facilities interspersed throughout the different phases. There will not be just a singular basin that handles the 289 acres.
It just looks like that road frontage is, to caveat what Commissioner Farnsworth saying, that's a lot of road frontage taken away that could be put into commercial.
That is a fact, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, that is the lowest spot. on the
Lowest.
site,
Okay.
because that site goes back in there, and I do have to give a compliment, always on a plan development master plan, there's a statement that says something like stormwater management and land use areas are conceptual in nature. They may be adjusted to achieve a development plan that is approvable from an engineering perspective. So you can little pod here, a little pod move there, as long as you don't go through the maximum number, right? You don't break through the threshold. One of the really cool things about this is we have some opportunities that we didn't even know we had. And I'll try to point to that little house there by Linda Woodcock's over there. When we sat down in our first project meeting, there is a historic farmhouse that's to the north of that, Dallas, and the little bluish square. Right. That's the historic farmhouse that lives there. And we were told that you need to go see this house by Mr. New because it is quite an astonishing house. The family who owned the land historically, the Grays, they did heavy road construction. And I think when those must have been Viking-sized gentlemen were out building roads, they were there building that house. That house is built like solid rock. It is covered in field stone and the walls are stone in it. And I've not seen anything that sturdy here. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to repurpose that house and use that house as like a hobby and amenity room. In addition to having, your traditional clubhouse that would be associated with a pool and tennis courts and things like that, we're going to use that more for a hobby space. So playing cards, build model planes, learning how to knit, quilt, and do those sorts of things. And we're going to actually say that it sits up on a bit of a knoll there. Your comment about stormwater made me think about it. Because when you come in from State Road 26, you kind of keep going uphill, even though it's not tremendously high. We're not in Kentucky or, the mountains of Colorado, but it sits up a good 15 feet or so from the elevation of Newberry Road. So all that watershed is going right toward Newberry Road. We got to put it on either side. The idea with that centralized commercial area there, and we could need more in the future, was to kind of capture. So once your home area effectively has all the amenities inside of it, and we wanted to buffer a little bit to give people a little bit of setback, if you will, from the noise of Newberry Road. And once you're in there, you're kind of in the quieter countryside.
I would also remind, and certainly the commission is not the exact same commission it was, but the last time we did a visioning process down Newberry Road, we talked about keeping green space on Newberry Road so that as you're coming into Newberry, you have that feel that you have left Gainesville and you're entering a small rural town, not just a big strip mall. So I was pretty pleased that the lowest spot actually ended up being there because we all had the same idea at that point.
For size and scale, I would add that commercial area in there is roughly the size of about Millhopper Square, where you have, Fresh Market, Northwest Seafood, Renaissance Coffee, the burger place where you get a ton of fries with your burger. I mean, that's about what 17 acres looks like. So you could easily put a grocer in there with a lot of other supportive uses, doctor, lawyer, dentist, bank, and that sort of thing. But we'll always take your comments to heart and write them down and watch them as time progresses.
Other comments from the dais, questions from the dais for applicant or staff? Seeing none from the dais. Before you walk away, you didn't touch on it too much tonight, but we did talk about traffic studies, capacity on Newberry Road, and you also made an interesting point at the PNZ that senior communities have a slightly different traffic pattern during the day, whereas the bulk of the working folks are up and out by 7:30. Seniors, they're not getting out until a little bit after that. They're in beforehand. So can you speak just a little bit to, and we could have staff speak to this as well, because I know they know the traffic counts and the capacity of Newberry Road as well.
Sure. Happy to. And the traditional single family detached house in a standard neighborhood produces about 9.57 trips per day, which is roughly 5 times the vehicle is going to leave and come back to a house. Apartment complex is about 6.67 in numbers. Senior living like this, as Mayor Marlowe states, follows a little bit different pattern. They don't need to be somewhere by 8 o'clock in the morning. And so where it would be our AM peak, which extends generally from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock, because we're going to our jobs or going to appointments and things like that. Their peak is a little later in the morning. It's called the brunch hour. At the end of the day, when we're all coming home between 4:30 and probably 6:30 to 7 at night, they're already, in most cases, either at a restaurant or already kind of done for the day. And they're in because either decreased eyesight or just wanting to be more, comfortable and be at home and not out on the road. So their number is actually a little bit less. The idea, again, on this of putting commercial in there was to make sure that, while they have a lower number of trips generated and shorter vehicle miles per trip, they're not going to drive 50 miles to do something like you or I might. A lot of their trips are going to be dissatisfied in that core of the day, not during the AM peak when we're all out there, or at the PM peak where people are coming home. So it makes for a little bit softer introduction, and certainly less trips because they're not taking kids to doctor practice, they're not taking kids to school, they're not taking kids, to daycare and things like that. Their trips are food, medical, church, off-peak hours, Sundays, Wednesdays, that sort of thing. So it's a softer introduction of the overall volume into the traffic network.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other final questions?
I'd like
Commissioner
to-
Clark?
So when you're commercial, do you already have, in your development plan, do you already have people ready to go for the doctors, the dentists, the groceries? Are they already asking you to build into this project?
Mr. Mayor, much to my surprise, they are. And we were asked by Ryan, I'd asked Ryan because the client had contacted us right after P&Z that, with moving forward with the staff recommendation for approval, and then the folks out there that watch these things, we were requested right after the P&Z to send that portion of the site plan specifically to the owner because they had interest from commercial groups that said, oh, we want to be the first there. And so I'm sure they want to get a few roofs on the ground.
Sure.
You know, so that they have a patient base or a client base or a tenant base or a hungry tummy base. But yes, there are people that are already seeking to be here.
And one last question, and this goes back to our schools. I know, Mr. Mayor, we were pretty much told we're at capacity, and although this don't affect the schools, I do know that people use addresses. Grandmama and granddaddy move here and they move somewhere that is not in this county, but granny and grandpa live here and they use their address to get into these schools. How could we address that if that becomes a problem? In our deed restrictions or any, it happens. I mean, we know these happens.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to kill, I'm not saying to kill the project, but I'm saying in the deed restrictions, if our schools start becoming overwhelmed and it's based on this community, then what do we do?
That's a really good question. And honestly, I've never had anyone say that, you know, is there a mechanism that could be built? I think the answer, you know, off the top of my head, or thinking from my feet, would be that there would be some sort of way to cordon off that area in our legal description with our series of parcel numbers that come from there and furnish that to the school board representatives frequently at planning and zoning meetings or during the course of review. You know, the school board will comment on a project. We're happy to take the comment and kind of forward it through just so that, you know, people aren't gaming the system, as you say. I mean, there's not a lot you can do if someone's got a will to do something, but
that's right.
If it ain't right, it ain't right. I agree with you.
I would also add to that, you're going to have some internal peer pressure because people are living in this, they're moving to a retirement community to not have that environment. I think you could have HOAs. I think you could have some language to it, but I would end on that last point because I can tell you as a teacher, if you try to close every single loophole
It's
from
tough.
everybody who wants to cheat the system, you know,
Yeah.
and again, guys, if we begin making decisions on what the school board needs, then I think we lose our focus because our focus is on what's right for Newberry. The school board needs to catch up with us, not the other way around.
But we have been told.
We have been told. We have been told.
We were
But
told
if
today.
we stop building, the school board loves life because then they just leave it right where it's at and
We
we
got the-
solve their problem for them. And that's their problem. We have our own problems that we need to focus
I
on.
agree.
Any other questions from the dais? Okay, then we'll move to final arguments. So would you like to make a final argument? You don't have to if you don't feel the need.
I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I wish the best for your commissioner who is still. I hope the best for him.
We appreciate that. Miss Wendy, would you like to make a final argument?
Staff is in agreement with the presentation made by the applicant. Very much.
Rich, would you please advise the decision-making bodies of applicable law?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're governed by the substantial and competent evidentiary standard.
Okay, thank you. We'll now enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion to approve conditions, continue, or deny. Does anyone have any last thoughts, comments? I have a motion from Commissioner Norfleet. A second from Commissioner Martin. Any questions or comments from the dais on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, we have our phone number up. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of item 13. This is the first reading of ordinance 2021-06. If you'd like to call and make a comment on the conversation you've listened to tonight, now is the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do to accomplish that is dial the phone number on the screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, simply look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission on this agenda item. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment from the chamber, and then we'll move to virtual comments. We have anyone else live in the chamber that'd like to make a final comment on this? Seeing none, virtual comments. Seeing none, we'll come back. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Farnsworth in dissent. That's going to move us to item 14 tonight, which is another quasi judicial reading. Dallas, we have anyone new into the meeting? Then we're going to move right to Rich reading the ordinance 2021-07 into the record for us, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance number 2021-07, LDR 21-05. an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida relating to the rezoning of approximately 289 contiguous acres, more or less pursuant to an application by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the city of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from the agricultural A zoning district to the planned development PD zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida, tax parcels 01927-000-000, 01932-000-000, 01933-002-000, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, sir. We've already sworn in for this agenda item, and we have no one new in the room, so I'm going to go to ex parte, Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Clark,
None.
and we'll get Commissioner Martin when he comes back from his comfort break. And Wendy, that will bring you up for the overview.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. This is the application for the second part of the process of bringing the property to be allowed to have the planned development for the retirement community. The next slide will show you the next slide. This is a request by CHW, who's the agent for property owners, for over 289 acres, going from agricultural to planned development to allow residential and non-residential uses. As the applicants described so far, that the age 55 plus adult community would be for single family development with neighborhood scale commercial uses along State Road 26. The next slide. The process, again, remember, this is a large scale, and that says small scale, but this is a large scale comprehensive plan amendment. And so now this is the zoning part that will be what implements that future land use map change to commercial. So in this case, going to plan development, which is commercial and residential development. The next slide will show you the location of the property over on the south side of State Road 26. We have looked at this. This is the 3 parcels of property, and the applicant has an excellent presentation that will go through the various aspects of the development.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and hear from the applicant with no time limit.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Ryan Thompson, CHW Planning Project Manager, agent for the applicant. Our presentation covered both items, both the comprehensive plan amendment and the rezoning. If we could have the record reflect all the testimony and presentation from the last item, we'd be grateful. And if you have any other questions.
It will reflect as such. Any
Thank you,
other
sir.
questions? I'm sorry, we're not at questions yet. My mistake. All right, staff, Ms. Wendy, do you have anything to add to that report? If not, will you go ahead and offer your recommendation?
The recommendation of staff, as the Planning and Zoning Board also recommended, is to approve the ordinance to allow for the rezoning from to plan development, and then that will allow the development of 70,000 square feet of commercial and the up to 900 single family units for the adult community.
Thank you, Ms. Wendy. Again, I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status, so that's going to move us to public comment. As soon as we get our phone number up, so there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to item 14 on tonight's public agenda. This is the first reading of ordinance 2021-07. If you'd like to call in and make a comment, you'll be given 3 minutes to do so on this agenda item. All you need to do to accomplish that, dial the phone number on your screen. That will get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. Make sure you have the opportunity to address the commission. We're going to begin with live comment from the chamber, then we'll move to virtual comment. Do you have anybody here live who'd like to address the commission on ordinance 2021-07? Seeing none, we'll move to virtual comment. Do you have any virtual hands raised? Seeing none, we'll come back now. Would the applicant like to cross-examine anything that you said? Okay. Ms. Wendy, did you hear anything you need to cross-examine?
No, I did not. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to members of the decision-making body. Do you have any questions for staff or the applicant? Seeing none, would the applicant like to make a final argument? Ms. Wendy, would you like to make a final argument?
No, sir. Thank you.
Seeing none, Rich, would you please advise the decision-making body as applicable law?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're governed by the substantial and competent evidentiary standard.
Okay, thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, we'll entertain a motion to approve conditions, continue, or deny the application. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin to approve as recommended.
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Clark. Any questions or comments from the dais on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, we'll go to public questions or comments on the motion on the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of item 14. This is the first reading of ordinance 2021-07. We have a motion probably second on the floor to approve as recommended. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on that motion, all you need to accomplish that is dial the phone number on the screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, you see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol, that'll let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment, then we'll move to virtual comment. Do we have anybody live in the chamber who'd like to comment on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, do I also have anyone virtually with their hand raised? Seeing none, come back, roll call vote. Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, no. Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Clark. Aye. Motion passes 3-1. Commissioner Farnsworth in dissent. That will move us to item 15. This is amending the City of Newberry's codes to development to allow tiny homes. Mr. Thomas, are you still with us? I have you as leading us through this conversation.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm afraid I'm having a few issues with a roving mouse trying to do this remotely. So hopefully you can hear me now.
We've got you.
Great, thank you. As stated, this is the second hearing of ordinance 2021-01, which is to allow for the construction development of tiny home neighborhoods under certain criteria. Next slide, please. Brief reminder as far as definitions go. A tiny home, as we've defined it for this ordinance, will be a single family residence on a permanent foundation, somewhere between 120 to 600 square feet total. It has to meet all the Florida building codes, has to be site built or could be modular construction, which means off-site in a factory, but still meets Florida building code. Or if the area that's being looked at for development of a tiny home is in an area that's zoned for allowable for mobile homes, it could be also a manufactured tiny home, which meets HUD building standard requirements. Next slide, please. And the definition of a tiny home neighborhood would be a lot with a minimum of 4 tiny homes and a maximum of 12 per acre, limited to a total size in the developed areas of Newberry, the already developed residential areas, of maximum of 3 acres. So therefore you'd have a maximum of 36 homes in a tiny home neighborhood in the developed area of the city. And then if you're going to do a tiny home neighborhood in agricultural districts, it's limited to 3 units per 5 acres with a maximum of 10 acres. So a total of 6 in a rural environment. Next slide, please. Where would the tiny home neighborhoods be allowed? If they're in the existing developed areas of Newberry, then in basically all of our residential zoning districts, it could be allowed. And then also they could be allowed in agricultural zoning districts. And in those areas, it would be by special exception only. In the already developed areas, as infill projects, or in agriculture, it would be special exception only, which would give the commission substantial leeway in approval process for a tiny home neighborhood. In new residential and mixed use developments, for instance, our planned residential development or planned developments, as we were just describing under the ARC project, it could be included as part of the master plan that's being submitted for the approval of the overall development. And so it wouldn't have to go through a special exception process because it's already going to be thoroughly reviewed and discussed by the commission as part of the overall approval process for those residential and mixed use developments. Next slide, please. And again, next slide, please. Okay, so as mentioned, a minimum allowable square footage based on Florida Building Code, which right now seems to be about 120 square feet, so it could be very tiny, all the way up to 600 feet.
It can be either on individually or platted lots or on a single ownership lot. So you could have a situation where you had a similar to a condominium type arrangement. It can be a single or a duplex allowed. Like we already discussed, has to be site built or modular built, so it meets Florida building code, or if a manufactured tiny home meets HUD standards. And again, minimum of 1 acre, maximum of 3 acres in the developed area, and a minimum of with a minimum of 4 units per and a maximum of 12 per acre. Next slide. And again, just the examples displayed. Next slide, please. There is common area required, approximately 400, well, it'd be 400, minimum 400 square feet per unit of common area. Can have community buildings. There'd have to be a maintenance plan provided as part of the special exception or as part of the development order. Some minimum lot standards, have access to a public right-of-way with maximum of 2 points of access, so there would be no backing onto existing streets which cause traffic problems. And all of the buildings within the neighborhood would have to comply with the perimeter setback requirements for the zoning district in which it's located. Next slide, please. And next slide. Okay, and so each tiny home neighborhood would have a centralized common open space. We already talked about 400 square foot requirement per unit. And if they decide to build a community building, it can be included as part of that overall requirement for common area. So you wouldn't have to double up if you're going to put a building in. As a means to provide aesthetic value, all homes have to have a usable front porch. We eliminated based on the Commission's direction, we eliminated the minimum square footage on the front porch to usable. And if you have secondary entrances that are facing parking areas or external sidewalks, then they would have to have a small rear porch there as well. Next slide, please. And again, parking, instead of the 2 parking spaces per unit that most of our residential requirements have, it'd be reduced to 1.5 spaces per unit. The idea being that people residing in tiny homes probably also have fewer vehicles. The common parking areas and drive aisles adjacent to the residential parcels would be screened from view from the residential parcels. If they're gonna offer a dedicated storage area for boats and RVs and et cetera, then it would be it'd have to be screened by a fence. And like I said, the common parking areas can't directly access public right-of-ways to prohibit backing into the oncoming traffic. Pedestrian walkways provided to connect homes to common areas and facilities. And internal fencing would be limited to lower, no more than 4 feet in height, generally picket style and that kind of thing. Next slide, please. And so again, just some visual examples of what we're talking about. Next slide, please. And then architectural design. This was another area that we made some revisions based on Commission direction. The Florida vernacular is the preferred architectural style. However, the applicant can also provide details for a more contemporary architectural design style, and provided the styles applied overall the whole development, so that it's not a mix of multiple different architectural design styles throughout the tiny home neighborhood. There's some cohesiveness in the aesthetic and the design throughout the community. Next slide, please. That's examples of what we're trying to avoid. Next slide. And more in favor of something along these lines. Next slide. And that would be an example of, this is actually down in the Tampa Bay area. We just read the article about it. It's very interesting, little development. And next slide. And this just goes into different approval types of roof style, covered porch requirement, the exterior finishes and colors. Next slide, please. And trim. Next slide. There we go. Next slide, please. And so, again, some examples, this would not be allowed. This would be a tiny home on wheels, which are not contemplated in this ordinance. And go through the next examples, please. Next example, there you go. Again, also not contemplating something along the lines of this right now in this ordinance. Next. Or this. So definitely looking for something more akin to this type of look or feel. Next slide, please. And again. So the Planning and Zoning Board did vote unanimously to recommend approval of ordinance 2021-01 with some revisions. Next slide, please. Those revisions were incorporated into the first draft brought before the City Commission on January 25th, at which time the Commission also provided some additional direction to staff for revisions to the ordinance. Next slide, please. And then we revised the ordinance, staff revised the ordinance, and on February 8th, the City Commission approved the revised draft of ordinance 2021-01 as presented by staff on first reading. Next slide. Staff recommendation would then be to enact on second reading ordinance 2021-01.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'm going to ask Rich to read the ordinance into the record. Let's go ahead and do that now before I forget, and then we'll come back to you, Brian, and ask any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ordinance 2021-01, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the text of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations to amend Section 2.1 definitions, Section 4.2 supplementary regulations, and list of principal uses and or uses allowed by special exception in Section 4.4A agricultural, Section 4.5 RSF residential single family, Section 4.6 RSF MH, RSF MH residential mixed single family mobile home, Section 4.7 RMH residential mobile home, Section 4.8 RMHP residential mobile home park, Section 4.9 RMF residential multiple family, Section 4.19 MU mixed use development, Section 4.20 PRD planned residential development, and Section 4.21 PD planned development zoning districts to allow tiny home neighborhoods, providing for development and design standards, providing for codification, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Rich. And since this is in essence the third time we've read this, I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion, and then we'll put it on the floor for a conversation. We'll go back to Brian with any further questions. So blazes a trail, but keeps it pretty firmly in the commission's control. Anyone want to make a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin and a second from Commissioner Norfleet. And now we have a motion, probably second on the floor. Are there any questions, comments for staff? Seeing none, we'll go to telephone number. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of item 15. We finally got out of our quasi judicial and we're back in a legislative agenda item. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on tiny homes, this has stirred up a lot of excitement across the country. Now would be the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do is dial the phone number that you see on your screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission and make sure you have the opportunity to do so. Again, the motion probably second on the floor is to approve the ordinance as it was read. This is ordinance 2021-01. We'll begin with live comment from the chamber, then we'll move to virtual comment. Anyone live in the chamber would like to make a comment on this item? Seeing none. Any virtual hands up? Seeing none. We'll come back. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously, and that will take us on to our agenda items. First up, item 16 is renovation of Newberry's electric generating plant. Mike?
This is a cool project.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Go through, in addition to a staff report, I've handed out for elected officials a copy of a presentation that we received from an architect. I think everybody but Commissioner Farnsworth. I'll deliver him one now.
hand delivery.
Okay, great. So, so some months ago, we reached out to, we contacted an architect about putting together some imagery that we were planning to use, that we still plan to use as a tool to kind of paint a picture of what the city's historic generating plant could look like if it was renovated. So it's not intended to be what it will be. That's at a future date if the commission decides to go that way and we raise some funding and do all those sorts of things. But we were, ever since I've worked here, there's been an interest in the community about, gee, wouldn't it be nice if that old generating plant was kind of turned into a museum? And well, it costs money, but nobody knows how much, and nobody knows exactly what it would look like. And I've reached out to the manufacturer of the generator itself, Alice Chalmers, and asked them if they would participate in funding. And they haven't said no, but they said we need to know more about the project. So we decided we needed a brochure, and what I had in mind was a 4-page brochure that would kind of show a few pictures and kind of give a timeline and a cost estimate, and we would carry this around and solicit funding and try to get people enthusiastic about the project. So I shared that idea with Skinner, Vignola, McLean, and they said, yeah, they'd love to work on it. And they got started and they produced this. And I want to tell you, we paid for the 4-page document, not the 34-page document, but they really like doing what they do. So they threw in a lot of extra. So you all have this, and I'm going to kind of take you through a presentation that I put together that's related to this. As you all know, back in 1910, the city got into the electric business. The way that cities do get into almost any utility business, it's because citizens wanted it and private business didn't think there was any profit in it and wouldn't do it. And so the city decided if it's meant to be, it's up to us, and jumped into the business. So today in Florida, there are 34 municipal electric service providers, and every one of them got their start because whoever was selling electricity in the day didn't think there was enough return on investment to start it. Newberry's one of the smallest in the state of Florida, and they're back in the day, there were 50 or 60 of us. So, but what Newberry's got an advantage, had a generator installed, only ran at night. In the daytime, I believe it generated electricity for an ice plant. So they could make ice, and then at night they'd run a few lights for a couple hours, and that's how we got our start in the business. But we managed to preserve the building, which is a nice historic building, and the generator's still in there, and half of Newberry thinks that they can get that generator running again and that we might could peak shave. I don't know that it's efficient enough to save us a dime if we could, but I know there are enough able-bodied mechanics in Newberry that we could absolutely get the sucker running again. But it serves primarily as a storage building. We clean it out, and a year or two later, it's full of stored materials again. And so I thought that I don't know that we will ever be, as a community or a commission, in a position to renovate the building, but I thought if we were going to, it'd be nice to have the information. It's kind of like a police department. I don't know that we'll ever start our own police department, but we've kind of thoroughly researched it, and we know that the details associated with it so that we can give it proper consideration. So I'll jump into the presentation. If I can figure out how to share my screen real quick. There's share screen, and there's the presentation. Come on, get up. There you go. And so just to kick off, there's let me see if I can make that go away because I can't see. Just moving on through the presentation, and I promise I can be quicker. Here's our recommended action. One of our elected officials asked if we have any current photos of the interior of the building. We do, they're just not sprinkled through this presentation, but I promise on another presentation we'll have more photographs, or I'll just email them to you all. There's kind of a location map that shows where the facility is. Most of you know, one of the things that is worth considering is that while this is now one block off of State Road 26, in 4 to 6 to 8 short years, it will be on State Road 26 and adjacent to it. So it gives it a little bit of a different consideration there. We developed the site plan, the aerial overview of what it could look, what it might look like with site improvements to meet our LDRs. If it were going to become a public access building, we would need to add restrooms. There are no restrooms at the facility. We would need to do site landscaping and do site parking. And it's currently, we would also have to section it off from the Public Works compound to make it accessible to the public. Here's a rendering of what the floor plan could be. Again, don't read too much into this. Our thoughts were the two main buildings, which is rooms, which is where the generator is, and the others where that deep well is. That actually used to store the water for the city's water plant. So it wasn't just a electric building, it was a utility building. We stored the city's water supply in there during the day and pumped out of it into the distribution system, and we made electricity in there. So the thought process is to turn those into exhibit rooms dedicated to our history and to public utility service. And then the two extra rooms, potentially a reception area and a conference room that would be available to staff or the public. We put AV equipment in there. Public could reserve it. And if the garden club wants to hold a meeting, or any of you say, I've got a meeting with a group that want to come in and learn more about Newberry, we could reserve that room for you. And then public restrooms would just need to be added to the facilities. Couple of section views of what it might look like from the architect's perspective. A few more section views. These are all in your handout. And then a number of renderings, and I'll just kind of pop through them. This is exterior view looking west from the parking lot. Same view, a little bit higher. That's interior. He had a really cool idea of what if we put some thick plexiglass down so you could stand on the well. Thought that was interesting. Also gives you an idea of what the displays might look like in the exhibit areas. Yeah, it's a nice 25, 28 foot deep well there.
And I would say anybody who hasn't had the opportunity, I mean, these renderings actually do a pretty good job, except for that's wrong. We won't go there, but it's an absolutely gorgeous building. The brickwork over there, I mean, it's worth taking a little tour, walking around.
Yeah, we are happy to coordinate field trips. You'd be surprised at how many field trips go through there now. I bet you I've been party to getting the facility open 3 times in the last 6 months, and Jamie does it more frequently than I do. There's a lot of people that want to tour that building and get a feel for it. And the best tour I took was with Mr. Ronnie Rowland, and he knew the history. He had a lot of the history, so he shared with us as he was taking it through the building. So if anybody has an interest, let us know. We'll get you scheduled up, and we'll see if Mr. Rowland could come. So just a few more renderings. The mayor has noted that the generator is not really a generator, and we'll give him credit. He's exactly right, but it was a good try. It's an artist's good try of it. Here's a rendering of what the meeting room might look like if we decide to do that. I guess one more cross section through the building. Opinion of cost. I evaluated the opinion cost. It's my opinion that it's probably a little bit generous. I think once you put in the design work, the existing building renovations, new restrooms, site work, and FF&E, we've got the price right at $715,000. I think it's, if we started work on it, I think we could scale it back. And this is a pretty scaled up version. But I wanted to make sure we're in the right ballpark. We're not talking about a $50,000 or $75,000 renovation, and we're not talking about a $3 million renovation. So I think this gets us in the right ballpark of somewhere north of $400,000 and south of $800,000. And the FF&E includes, is really important to the architect, is that if you're really going to make it an exhibit area and a museum, you need to plan on developing exhibits and having those created to tell the story. He said,
museum would fall on its face if you decided to type them up and type up the story and then put it in a photo frame, a picture frame on the wall. He said, you know, museums really jump whenever someone that has experience and expertise creates the exhibit to tell the story. They have some experience with some museums that they've worked in. So just next steps are, you know, design. Those are the steps of design, and a design. If and when the city ever decides to move forward with it, we should expect about a year time frame to get through development of design drawings so that we could have a biddable document. Then procurement phase would probably last 3 to 4 months, and then construction on a project of this magnitude is probably somewhere in the 9 to 12 month time frame. It's not overly sophisticated, but it would take about 2 years start to finish if the city or the commission wants to move forward on developing that building as a museum. And again, it could be anything. This was just our best guess. So I'm gonna stop here for questions about what we've prepared. And I'm also just going to advise that there's 3 or 4 more slides about a potential business opportunity. It's what I'd call an unsolicited proposal that came to the city as another candidate competing interest in the building that I'd like to present. The purpose of tonight's meeting was more to roll some stuff out and get people thinking. I think that something as strategic as this probably is not something we want to consider where we throw it out there for the first time and we ask for a decision to be made. Let you look through this, ask the community, speak with the community, think about it, and then give the staff decision, which could be, we don't know what we want to do yet, might just keep it hanging around for a little bit. But do you have any questions about what we've done with the architect?
Okay, so before we move to questions, I want to thank staff and the architectural firm. This has been an idea that has been kicked around for a long time, and this is the kind of step that we need to start making informed decisions about how we want to move forward. So please pass along that gratitude, because this is a very in-depth analysis of what could be done there. Questions from the dais for Mike? Mr. Mark.
On the fundraising angle, is it possible to incorporate a feature into people's electric bills if they wanted to add an extra $10 onto their electric bill for this, to add a line item or some sort of utility to that? Mr. Mayor, that is a fantastic idea, and that would be possible. And just to expand on that, the thoughts that staff had, your staff had, one, the state of Florida has grant programs for historic buildings, and we apply every year. And based on what I see, I think this one would rank high enough to get funded. Every year when we apply, we're always somewhere around 30th to 32nd, and we always just miss the funding. You know, it stops at 30 or something like that. I think this one will rank a little higher. I don't think it'd be a top 10 in the state, but I think it would merit some interest. I also think that the equipment manufacturer and public power are potential partners in this. So I think it might be possible to get the city's share down to maybe a third, a quarter, a third, if we want to redevelop it, but it would take some legwork and some asking by our staff and by our elected officials.
So one of the tours that I took a gentleman on was from a Canadian lieutenant. What are they in Canada? Royal Air Force. But he's lived down here, Royal Air Force, right? He moved down here. His hobby is these old generators. And this guy was so enthusiastic. And he said there's all these interest groups out there, these clubs that are focused on this. He thought he could help with the fundraising. And he was another one of the mechanics. He said, I'll get it, I'll get it running. So I don't know where that would go, but he seemed dead set that there are groups out here that are into these old generators that would be really, really excited. Other questions? Commissioner Norfleet.
On the State Road 26 pairs, ain't there going to be a cul-de-sac close by?
Mr. Mayor, that's a really good memory. That is the plan. Northwest First Avenue coming from the west is expected to dead end. Essentially adjacent and just south of this, because the railroad crossing bisects it, and Northwest First can't connect exactly with 260th. So they were going to put a cul-de-sac in there where the state highway goes by.
That's your question.
Hey, Mr. Mike took me down and showed me this facility, and I think he's spot on with it. I think that this should get pushed to the point of at least getting the roof. If we don't get the roof repaired, the building's gonna go in disrepair, and then it ain't gonna be worth anything. So I think there should be some sort of sense of urgency to at least get this thing saved until we can get the money for further, but it definitely needs the roof done now or it's gonna rot down.
I think one of the things that we should do is if this commission is agreed that we should pursue our avenues here, maybe once we have a fundraising strategy in place, fundraisers, I think, work best when you have a kickoff, something where you bring people there, you open it to the public, you provide some, coffee and donuts kind of a thing. We get it cleaned up to the point where it would be safe to take people through there so they can see what we're trying to save. I think that's one of the things we didn't do with the Kincaid building, because everyone who went into the Kincaid building and looked at the rafters and the woodwork, they all loved it and they all wanted to save it, but that never translated to the greater public at large. So if we're going to ask people to give $10 on their electric bill, I think we'd have I think it's a great idea. I think we'd have some success, but I think we got to get them in the building and show them what we're trying to save. So somehow it's pretty clean right now. I don't know how long Jamie can keep it cleaned up, but I also think before we do that, we want to have a full strategy for how we're going to approach this and who we're going to go to, and maybe get some of those potential partners to come to that kind of event. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor, to Commissioner Clark's point, which is an excellent one, we don't see that protecting the roof as being a significant cash outlay, and we intend for that to be included in next year's CIP. Okay. We think that at least safing up the exterior structure, the envelope, as Jamie says, is critical to preserving the building.
Well, before we give you any direction, let's see your other slide. Office space out here in Newberry.
Mr. Mayor, as I indicated, we were having a conversation with Newberry expressed some interest in some of the locations, but they stumbled across this one, which was the 13th, and they said that is this building would be our lead candidate if the city would consider getting it off the tax roll, so to speak. If the city is willing to unload the property and allow us to move in with the business, I guess we would have to take our unsolicited proposal to a solicited proposal. But the thought was, develop it into a microbrewery. What they've just indicated in our meetings to discuss it, they would preserve the generator room and the wet well room, the exhibit rooms, for exhibits. Maybe not do it as far as our architect has intended here, but if you get served a beer, you can walk around and take a look at all this stuff. They think it would really add to the ambiance of a microbrewery. The room that we have identified as a conference room, that's where they indicated they would probably have a tap room of sorts. That conference area and reception area would all be one tap room of sorts. They would have to add bathrooms, same as us, and they also would construct a new production area. And I can show this particular site plan shows where the likely area for production. This is where they would actually bring in their manufacturing facilities to ferment and produce beers that they sell on site. So their site plan would look similar to ours, with the exception of having, you know, a building for production, a new building. I don't think it would be a modern building, or at least the facade wouldn't look modern. It would be something that's in keeping. And they would have the same site work, although they've indicated that, you know, they like to have live music on maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday evening. So they usually have, they anticipate an area where they could have some live music and some outdoor seating for people to enjoy that. And again, we haven't negotiated terms. We haven't done anything with any seriousness. We as a staff team talked about how it might look, because they've indicated to us there's a pretty considerable investment just in opening a microbrewery, and that building needs some renovation, as we've seen by the previous presentation to you. So what we've contemplated as a candidate would be establishing the purchase value by an appraisal. Go get an appraisal, professional appraisal, and say this is what the value is worth, and determining it by an agreement between us and the buyer what we think the value of the building is. And we write that into the contract, and we transfer the property immediately, which would start property taxes and all those sorts of things. They'd be the owner, but that they've asked us to consider deferring the payment for X number of years. They're going to infuse a lot of capital on the site. So the city might wait 5 or 10 years, whatever is agreed upon, before they actually make the cash payout for the building and the land. And that we would condition the purchase that, you know, they would have to continue the exhibit areas to whatever the commission decides is, you know, how important it is to maintain that. They'd have to go through a land use and rezoning. We'd have to, you know, break off a parcel, and then renovation of the building and construction of the improvements would start. The things that they've indicated in their conversations with us are there's a park across the street, and their microbreweries tend to be very family centric. So they think that that would be an ideal situation. The fact that the state road is going to be running adjacent to this, they also think gives them a lot of exposure. And the park and our public works compound mean that there aren't any residential directly on top of them. And they indicate that their live music isn't a public nuisance by any stretch, but they also wouldn't want to be right next door to residential with outdoor live music. They prefer to have a little bit of distance between them and their closest residential neighbors. So, Mr. Mayor, that concludes part 2 of the presentation. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them.
Commissioner Martin.
I seem to recall that we do have some prohibitions of alcohol related to schools and churches. And would the park potentially fall under that umbrella?
Mr. Mayor, I won't speak with authority on that, but I don't believe that we have any types of conflicts with the sale of alcohol across the street from a public park.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
We've also sold alcohol at Lowe'sport Park during West Fest.
I was trying to stay below that radar, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. And I remember looking very specifically at that ordinance when the restaurant across the street opened up, and it's like 150 feet or something. We're nowhere near. Other thoughts, Commissioner Clark?
Yes, Mike, don't we, so when we talk about selling city property, are we gonna have to go out for public to bid this thing out to public without selling straight to an individual?
Mr. Mayor, that's my understanding. You mentioned this was an unsolicited proposal, and I said we'd have to convert it into a proposal of sorts. You know, we actually have a package that we prepared but never issued with regards to the property where the Berry Park is in the Kincaid building. It's a similar type proposal. So, I mean, I think that to meet state law, we'd have to give anyone an opportunity. These guys have a very specific idea. So I think that, you know, they would definitely have a favorable proposal. It's not to say that somebody else doesn't come in with one that's more favorable. That's what happens when the public goes to doing these types of
My point is,
activities.
But in that proposal, you get to say it has to keep the historical, you have to have the museum
Agreed.
aspect, you
And it
get to
would.
lay out. So somebody has to come in, it's not just a free for all.
it's not a free-for-all bid.
Right. It is
And it's
within
not-
these parameters.
And it wouldn't be a
Range
bid
of
either. It'd be a
ideas.
proposal. It'd be a little more wide open. Tell us how you would use the building that would benefit our community and appeal to us. The commission would have a great amount of latitude in who they selected and what they thought was in the best interest of the community. But that, I mentioned that we had done a proposal, developed a proposal RFP for Berry Park. It included 10,000 photographs of what the old Kincaid building looked like. And it said that there would be preference given to someone that built a building that had a lot of the same features. We've got lumber from the Kincaid building, and we indicated that the successful bidder should anticipate utilizing that lumber in their new construction so that, we could tie the old to the new. I think we'd make similar type of indications in whatever RFP the commission asked us to put forward.
Second part of that would be if this went forward in a proposal, are we gonna stop any type of fundraising or any type of repair on the roof? Or we're gonna move forward and then add that to the amount of money that somebody's buying it for after the appraisal?
I think it could go either way. If this extends for very long, I think we're planning to fix the roof because we understand that it could have a negative outcome. If the commission gives us direction to go ahead and move forward, and this thing is well underway before we get to October budget, new budget starting, we'll just anticipate that it's part of the work that whoever the successful bidder is undertaking.
Yeah, that's all it is.
I think to Commissioner Clark's point, though, if this commission is willing to entertain a deferred payment, you probably would have to offer that across the board. You couldn't keep that later, right? So you'd say, these are the parameters, this is what we're looking for. This is our skin of the game, this is what we're offering to make it happen, that kind of thing. Commissioner. Right. Commissioner Farnsworth?
Yeah, I think it's a historic building. I don't think that we should be even entertaining the possibility of selling it. Next, we'll be selling the red brick schoolhouse. And I think we should just keep it and work towards renovating it and using it as a museum.
Commissioner Norfleet?
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same line as Commissioner Farnsworth. I wouldn't want the city to lose ownership of it, but I wouldn't be opposed to, I don't know if it could happen, but long-term transferable lease for an occupant that wanted to do something along them lines and fix it up, where I think it's important to fix up those historical buildings. People might.
My only thought to Commissioner Farnsworth is I would be in agreement unless keeping it in the city of Newberry means that it just sits there and crumbles away. So if we're not going to do anything with it and the roof's going to cave in and we're going to lose that historical building, I'd much rather see somebody else come in and put the $700,000 into it, put it back on the tax rolls. If this commission decides, no, we want to aggressively pursue that and we're going to keep it, that's a different kind of conversation. So I think we got to make a decision one way or the other. Right now it's ours and it's dilapidated. So that would be kind of how my brain would differentiate between those two paths. If we're going to keep it, well, then I think we have an obligation to do something to fix it up and preserve it. So, but if we can find a partner that will help spend $700,000 to fix it up and keep it historical, I think that's a slightly different, set of expectations there. Commissioner Martin.
Well, I'm actually kind of thinking almost a little of both, in the fact that one of the best things about historic buildings is the ability for people to actually see them and generating traffic toward them. If there was a way that I felt that we could maintain ownership and potentially create traffic there that people would actually appreciate it. And that could be one thing, but using it for some sort of commercial purpose, if that generates a little bit of the same interest, then I would be willing to at least entertain it. Maybe a brewery is not the way to go, but it could be something else. And maybe that's what the proposals could potentially put in front of us, different options to look at that.
It's not part of this conversation, but since we're shifting towards thinking about this, it's going to be a secondary conversation to this one, because our old historic jail is right behind the utility building, the electric building, and that splits people's. We got a lot of residents that want to bulldoze that. You got a lot of residents that want to also renovate that and preserve that history as well. And in a lot of these renderings, we're going to need that space back there in order to figure that out. So got to kind of figure out, do you want to preserve the whole thing? Do you want to get rid of that and remodel that area? That would be sort of a second, and I don't want to get us into that conversation tonight. I just want to put it on your radar to think about, how do you see that renovation going at the same time? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There have been some pretty interesting proposals about, because I do a lot of field trips, bring the kids over to see those as well. So I mean, there's history there also. Commissioner Clark.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, what I'm hearing is we're sitting here looking at a PowerPoint. We're not voting on anything tonight. We're just going, okay.
I think we do need to give the manager some direction. I think if you've got a business that is coming to us and asking, then I think that he should pursue that conversation to some point where a decision has to be made. They can come back to us and say, here, this is the decision. And that would be okay. They're ready to go, but that means we got to do the RFP. We got to put that out. Or we can say, bring it, put it back on the next agenda. Let's sleep on a little bit, and we can do our own internal fundraising for a little bit, see how that goes. I just remind Main Street fundraised for the Kincaid building for almost a decade, maybe not quite that long. And it's, when you're talking about $700,000 and the Kincaid building was $350, it's a tough nut to crack with just fundraising. So I think we could do we could build more partnerships, and we could go at it. We learned a lot in that fundraising effort, try to save that building. So I think we could do a better job, but those are sort of the two paths that we need to figure out.
So I'll piggyback off Commissioner Norfleet and Farnsworth. What about the long-term type thing? We get this roof fixed, so because if we don't, it's going to go away on us. But if we do get it fixed, and they can come up with something that if we're going to partnership with somebody, that they put the money in it, and then they have a long-term lease, and the city keeps the building.
Well, I only
So
tell you
that's
about if it's just a microbrewery, there are state laws that are lobbied by the big brewery companies that make it really difficult for them to operate unless they own the building. So that I'm not saying that's an insurmountable. That's why I think our direction tonight should be pursue this conversation. Maybe we could ask some of our upper staff to look at what would be a cohesive fundraising strategy if we want to keep it. And then we bring it back and say, if we wanted to do fundraising, we could do X, Y, and Z. We would form these partnerships, and then we'd maybe pursue a little bit more information with the business that's approached us. But I know that specifically, as I've traveled around talking to microbreweries, that's an issue that they come up against. Mike.
All good ideas. I was going to make or request a motion from the commission that senior staff on their own time research at least a dozen microbreweries before we come back to the commission.
Is that field trips?
Present this.
So the commission needs to go on those field trips too.
I think it's a great homework assignment for all of it. And again, we'll take it on our time, staff time, not the public's time, to research a few microbreweries between now and the next time we present this.
And just for for anyone listening at home, if you're not a microbrewery, if you don't, these are extremely family oriented places at this point. This is a totally different feel than what a lot of folks may have in your mind. These are, you got the kids playing in the yards, there's some live music. There's usually a food truck that comes out. Luckily we have a food truck ordinance coming. So this is not a bar. It's not a, this is, when you hear a microbrewery next to a park, that may give some people pause, but this is kind of in par with where this culture is going. These are places where you're paying $5, $6, $7 a beer. You're not attracting folks there that are there to consume 12 of them. They're there to have one or two, enjoy some time with their family, that kind of thing. Anything else, Mike? Okay, let's move on to 17, authorization to execute cost share agreement with the Swanee River Water Management District. River Grant, Mr. Jones, I believe you're up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. As you stated, we're here tonight to request authorization to execute a cost share agreement with the Swanee River Water Management District for a river grant. The recommended action is we're requesting that you authorize the city manager to execute a contract with the Swanee River Water Management District for cost sharing expenses related to the expenses of connecting the Alachua County water and wastewater system to the city water and wastewater system, consistent with the city's river grant application, contingent upon the city attorney's office finding the agreement to be acceptable. For a little bit of background, the Swanee River Water Management has developed a cost sharing or grant program, which they title the River Grant Program. It's a regional initiative valuing environmental resources, is what the acronym stands for. It provides opportunities for local governments to obtain cost share funding for projects that foster the district's core mission. Eligible projects include projects that enhance aquifer recharge, conserve our water supply, develop alternative water supplies, enhance or restore natural systems, improve water quality, protect springs, or provide improved flood protection. This program is actually funded by the legislature during each year's budget development. The city applied for this river grant program to seek cost sharing on the cost to connect the County Agricultural Equestrian Center to the city wastewater system. As you recall, we had the ribbon cutting this weekend. The interlocal agreement between the city and Alachua County requires that the city bears these costs for these expenses associated with connecting the facility to the city's wastewater and water system. And the Water Management District values the elimination of septic tanks at the facility because the city's wastewater facility removes the nitrogen and other pollutants more efficiently than those septic tanks that were previously located there. Our grant application requested that the Water Management District share these expenses for the project and identified a total expense for the project of $323,661 and request that the grant pay $200,000 of those expenses, with the city paying the $123,661 balance. The Water Management District Board of Directors approved this application and directed their staff to transmit an agreement for the city to execute. You have a copy of that attached in your packet. The city attorney is reviewing that to form, and as such, staff requests authorization to execute this agreement contingent upon the city attorney's office finding the agreement to be acceptable.
Mr. Mayor, for your purposes, the city attorney's office has reviewed the contract and we would approve it as to form and content.
Thank you, Scott. Jamie's being humble, but this is a pretty big success. We have not had a tremendous amount of success with Swanee River Water Management District. And so this is a big deal. I hope that this is the turning a new leaf with this board and that we are successful in future partnerships to come. So this is, we're on the hook for the whole thing and they're coming in and helping out. And so this is, I want to express our gratitude to them and achieving this. So we have a recommended action, which is to make a motion to, okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Martin. I have a second from Commissioner Norfleet. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor to authorize the manager to execute this agreement? Seeing nothing from the dais, we'll move to public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on item 17 on tonight's published agenda, an exciting item about a grant that we have worked out with the Swanee River Water Management District. If you'd like to call in and congratulate our staff on their success here, now would be a great time to do so. All you need to do to accomplish that is dial the phone number on the screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Look at the bottom of your screen, see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. That lets us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment in the chamber, then we'll move to virtual comment. Do we have anybody live in the chamber who'd like to address the commission? Seeing none. Do we have any virtual hand raised? Seeing none, we'll come back for a vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. That'll take us to item 17, which is a close to the public attorney-client litigation strategy session regarding Alachua County's Growth Management Act. Scott, are you leading this one?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did not catch it.
It's the growth
I was asking if you.
Oh, yes. We have on the agenda this evening, the issue related to Growth Management Act. As you are aware, Mr. Mayor, this is in litigation right now. There are 3 counts in the complaint. The first count relates to the ballot question itself. And of course, you attended the summary judgment motion hearing where both sides had countervailing motions for summary judgment. The county had their motion for summary judgment, and City of Newberry, along with City of Alachua and City of Archer, had their motion for summary judgment as to count 1. And our motion for summary judgment was that the ballot question was ineffective in informing the proposed vote that what the matter was all about. And it did not contain a summary that would adequately inform the voter that this was a change in the nature of annexation under Chapter 171, such that now the county would have jurisdiction over areas that are contained in a map known as the Growth Management Map Area, and that the City of Newberry, when properties are annexed to the city and they're governed under this mapped area, would retain jurisdiction under the county. So our argument was that the ballot summary was ineffective to inform the voter of that change in the law. And the county said, no, the ballot summary was effective. The judge sided with the county as to count 1 and rendered her ruling. Judge Monica Brazenton ruled that the ballot summary was sufficiently effective and cited a case out of Seminole County and really focused her opinion based upon that case. It was the City of Winter Springs versus Seminole County. Now, we have filed a motion for reconsideration of that decision by the trial judge, and that is under consideration right now by Judge Brazenton as to whether or not to amend, modify, clarify her decision. And we have also cited to the judge in our motion for reconsideration that the City of Winter Springs Seminole County case was decided on grounds other than as argued in this case. It has factually a lot of similarities, but the decision and the arguments were based upon other legal principles in Seminole County than the case that we have in front of the judge right now. In keeping with that, since the summary judgment was potentially a non-final order, we were in a bit of a quandary as the attorneys in this case as to whether or not we should appeal that in addition to filing the motion for reconsideration. And because we did not want to lose any legal grounds on behalf of the city, we filed a notice of appeal. I believe that was done on March 1st with the First District Court of Appeals in Tallahassee. Now, that issue will then go in front of a 3-judge panel. There will be a briefing schedule, and then there will be a determination by the appellate court whether the trial court, Judge Brazenton's court, erred or she should be affirmed in her decision. Now, with that there are two other counts in the complaint, which are basically, in a nutshell, very similar to each other. One is that the ballot question is a change in the general law related to annexation. The other is a argument that the ballot question changes the law as to land use planning. And therefore, it would be improper to change general law by a change in the charter.
Scott,
So
can
those
I pause you there for 1 second?
Sure.
Because it seems like we're getting into what we would be talking about and making decisions on. And I want to make sure we don't, part of the problem with the litigation is we need to have these kinds of conversations, but it's sort of hard to do that. So don't steal your own thunder from the shade meeting. The topic in front of us tonight is, do we want to proceed with that meeting so that we can have, an open conversation about strategy and whether or not we should move forward? Is that a correct assessment of where we're
I'm
at?
glad, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad you said it, because that's exactly what happens in litigation. We're in an open meeting. The county can be listening to this meeting, so you don't want to start talking about your litigation strategies in an open meeting, and that's where a closed meeting comes into effect. So I think we've talked about where we're at in the litigation now, and I think our city staff believes it would be useful to have a meeting in a closed session. The only way we can have that closed meeting is by us doing several things. The first thing that we need to do is have a decision and a vote by this commission. Do we want to have a closed meeting? That's number one. Number two, you can then ask me, your manager, as to what the strategies are, where we're at, where we're going, and have some discussion as to where you want to direct me. You can't vote at that closed meeting, but you can certainly get information as the commissioners, and then give city staff, including the city attorney's office, some direction on where you want to go. Now, having said that it is a closed meeting, it's taken down by a court reporter, and at the close of the litigation, then that discussion that is had in a closed meeting becomes public. So even if you're in a closed meeting, I would caution you, and we'll talk about this again when we get to the closed meeting, if you decide to do that, commissioners, be careful about what you say, even in a closed meeting, because the door is then open when the litigation is over. And I've experienced sometimes where a statement's made and it might be an embarrassing statement at some stage down the road. But the focal point, as the mayor just said, right now is, do we want to have such a closed meeting at this stage so you can ask some additional questions and we can give you some candid responses that is closed to the public at this point? Or do you want to do that at a later point? Also, if you decide to have a closed meeting now, you can have a closed meeting a month from now, 2 months from now, that sort of thing. I will tell you that the litigation process is not particularly quick. And so we're going to be in this process for a substantive period of time down the road. But the question for you commissioners at this point is, do you wish to have a closed meeting? And if so, we'll need a motion to have that done, a second, and then call it for a question and a vote.
Okay, thank you, Scott. So the question for us tonight is, do we want to have a shade meeting so that we can talk about some of these things more openly? I can tell you that our sister city of Alachua remains committed financially and ideologically to this pursuit. So we probably would not be alone. I would say that it's probably appropriate for us to have that meeting in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think that there's a script that we follow when we do it to kind of keep us on track. And then, as Scott said, we could always come back a later time if we need an additional one. Mike, do you have anything to add before we open it to the commission?
Mr. Mayor, staff proposes that we conduct the meeting immediately preceding our next regular city commission meeting. That'd be Monday, March 22nd at 6:30 p.m. It would open in public, and then we would transition into the closed to the public portion where the public that weren't allowed to attend would have to step outside of commission chambers. And then after it was convened, we'd invite the public back in to formally close the meeting. The attendance would be by the city attorney, myself, and our elected officials and a court reporter only. And there was one more detail that I thought was important to get out to you guys. It would be.
Mr. Mayor, while
I
he's
do know
thinking
that
of that,
detail. We will not have the ability to have it as a hybrid meeting for elected officials who could only attend. So we would need all of our elected officials in the commission chambers to conduct that meeting if they want to participate.
Mike, commission thoughts?
We have a prepared motion if someone is interested in making a motion.
and Mr. Mayor, my suggestion would be, because these
I
are,
want to see that motion. Commissioner
Mr. Mayor, while he's handing that out, my suggestion would be that we schedule about 45 minutes, just because opening it up and then closing it, and that sort of, maybe we start the meeting at 6:15, or we start our regular commission meeting a little later, whatever the pleasure of the commission is. But I would suggest we allocate about 45 minutes for the meeting.
I think the recommended motion suggests 6 o'clock. That gives a little bit of cushion. We can always have a comfort break in between the shade meeting and the regular meeting.
Could you make it at 6 o'clock? Would be our regular scheduled meeting on the 22nd. It's a Monday. Mayor, this time I'll go ahead and move the motion that we have a close to the public attorney-client litigation strategy session held beginning at 6 o'clock, March 22nd, 2021, in accordance with 286.0118 of the Florida statute.
Okay, I have a motion. I have a second from Commissioner Norfleet. Any questions or comments on the motion on the floor from the dais? Hearing none, we'll go to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of item 18. This is a suggestion to have a closed to the public attorney-client litigation strategy session. The motion on the floor is to have that closed session so that we can talk about our strategy and how to move forward if we want to move forward. If you'd like to call in and make a comment on the motion on the floor, now would be the appropriate time to do so. All you need to do is dial the phone number that you see on your screen. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of your screen, see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. That'll let us know you'd like to address the commission. We'll make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live comment from the chamber, then we'll move to virtual comment. Do we have anybody in the chamber live who wants to speak to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, we have no one virtually. Come back for all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to comments, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to circle back real quick to the river grant and make sure that I give Jamie, Dallas, and their respective teams accolades. That's $200,000 savings to our utility payers is huge in my eyes, and it was strictly their efforts to pursue it and to work with water management district staff, and when things didn't look good, to get back in the game and demonstrate that it was a worthwhile project for funding. Both of them really put together a yeoman's effort on that, and our ratepayers are going to be the benefactors. So big appreciation to them. And speaking of the water management district, tomorrow, an agenda item, their board is meeting tomorrow morning, and one of the agenda items, I guess, for our land use committee is to consider transferring the 60-acre tract at Easton that they own where our well field is, transferring it to the city. If they do, we've been working on this for about 3 years. If they agree to that, it's going to come with certain conditions. One condition is they're going to timber it, but they're going to timber it either way. So it's going to be timbered within the year. The other conditions would be that that the property will be conditioned so that it is primarily used as a potable well field forever and ever. There'll be a conservation easement across it, and we could have passive recreation as a secondary use of it, including the multi-purpose fields that we were proposing to construct, but that would always be secondary to its primary function in the world. So hopefully the Lands Committee tomorrow is going to recommend transfer of that property to the city. And I would expect within another month or two, their board will then hear it and follow suit. Mr. Mayor, we are offering COVID vaccines tomorrow at Easton Newberry Sports Center. Travis and his team do a remarkable job. Department of Health is the one that reaches out to us and say, we like the way that you handle your business with regards to COVID. Would you help us? So this is our second round of COVID vaccines, and we set up the hotline. We receive all the calls. We make all the appointments. We do all the follow-ups. The Department of Health, who's a great partner, shows up and gives shots, but the actual logistics portion component of the project is all on our recreation team. They do a great job with that. We are moving forward with this the strategic planning visioning session that the commission authorized. The first steps are going to be key stakeholder interviews, which means that each elected official should be speaking with Mariah Rains with UCF about an hour and a half or two. It's a really good interview. She wants to get your understanding and your perspective of where to go. Then we'll be scheduling the second step, which will be community forums. We have one live one in person and one virtual one scheduled towards the end of March. We'll keep commission. We'll select those dates. I think we're a week or two out from selecting those, firming up those dates for sure. We'll keep you posted. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, we don't have anything to add this evening.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll start with the commission. Commissioner Norfleet, Commissioner Farnsworth, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Clark. I just want to say thank you again to all the staff for the fairgrounds. You know, Dr. Sanders at the ribbon cutting yesterday mentioned, wasn't out yesterday, this weekend, Saturday. She mentioned how about 2 weeks ago, she wasn't sure that the ribbon cutting was going to happen. They were going to be able to have it. I think that's code for there were still a whole lot of hurdles to get through. And I know that means there was a lot of behind the scenes work from our staff and county staff to make that happen. It really was a great event. The fairgrounds look amazing. It's about $11 million improvement into the city of Newberry, and it saved an equestrian center. So hopefully everybody gets a chance to get out there and see the next event. Again, we already kind of talked about the elections. I always like to make this comment before we go into elections. For better or for worse, as my role as a teacher, our young people are watching our elections. They are paying attention. And so you guys have always done a great job at being civil with your opponents. And I hope that that continues this time, because our kids look at us for how we should behave and how we should act. And I think we do a great job in the city of Newberry showing how we can have different ideas, different concepts about the future, and we can do that civilly and respectfully. So, and I'm sure that we'll continue that tradition. That's all I've got for tonight. Citizen comments. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our meeting tonight. The commission likes to hear from you until they set aside a longer period of time in the evenings. You have 5 minutes to call in and make any comment on any topic that you wish. If you'd like to do that, all you need to do is dial the phone number that you on the screen. That'll get you in the meeting. Once you're in the meeting, look at the bottom of the screen, see a little hand symbol. Click that hand symbol. Let us know you'd like to address the commission. Make sure you have the opportunity to do so. We're going to begin with live public comment from the chamber, and then we'll go to virtual comment. Do we have anybody live with us tonight who'd like to make a comment? Seeing none, we'll go to virtual comment. Seeing none, we are adjourned.